From Toronto to Tokyo, and from Phonia to Syrinx, this is The Basement, your companion to the Ready Player 2 novel. Join our hosts each episode for complete chapter breakdowns and deep dives into the pop culture references through a series of challenges and homework assignments. The Basement is the Ready Player 2 podcast for people who love things. And now, please welcome Albert, Will, and the rest of the Gunters for this week's episode. Hello, Gunters. You are in The Basement. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 0001 of Ready Player 2, the novel, part 2, in an episode that we're calling Wakanda Forever. So we had a chance to break down the first part of this chapter last week, and unfortunately there was just too much packed in here, and so we decided to separate a lot of the music, and Wakanda was mentioned. We didn't include that last week, so figured why not, right? So with me tonight, broadcasting from an undisclosed location, is none other than, oh wait, no, never mind, sorry, it says live from New Orleans, it's Will Wilkins.
Hey, how's it going? Being of you, freaking New Orleans, we are merely weeks away from Mardi Gras, which isn't really happening this year. So
yeah, it looks like it. I mean, I can't tell if that's live or.
So I know this might come to a shock to many of you, but I was in the quarter, and there is literally no one there. There are more street hustlers in New Orleans than there are tourists at this point. It's ridiculous. It's a surreal scene because you still got the guys at the door like, come on in, man, drink specials, come on in. And it's still got like the loud music and the vibe, but there's nobody on the street except for street hustlers and homeless people and random people like us. It's a surreal experience.
Yeah.
Support your local bars.
I can't even imagine what that looks like, honestly, to be honest.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're glad you made it. You sound great for broadcasting on the streets there, live on the streets like that. So,
hey, well, I got to tell you, this is the travel setup, so no guarantees we're going to make it to the end of the show.
It may be like last time live from Mexico, and I think he dropped out for like 2 minutes. And
I dropped out for 2 minutes, and then I swear that security was at my door at one point. Like,
hey, quiet there!
Hey, we're trying to sleep, man.
All right. Well, speaking of French, we're actually going to be talking about French today a little bit when we get into one of the songs. So, all right. Well, let's do this. So again, we have already done the narrative for chapter 1, and so there's really nothing to cover there. So we're going to go right into the pop culture references, which means this will probably turn from a 3-hour show to a 2.5-hour show. So let me throw up the screen here, and we'll just dive right into it. There we go. Look at that. Beautiful. And we're going to start with Arcadia. So this was, I left this out by accident, honestly. We tackled all of the Arcadia references last week for the most part. And it was, as I was reading, I realized that I missed one of them. So it was probably the one I wanted to talk about the most.
How is that possible? You mentioned at least 30 Arcadia references, including like RPGs and video games.
Yep.
Oh, but we left one out.
Well, we did. Okay. We left one out.
Okay.
So this is a band called Arcadia. The band started in 1995. They were around till 1986. Now, before it's actually these guys. This is Duran Duran. So the two of the members dropped out. I know you're already getting really excited and revved up for this one. So this is in 1985. Nick Rhodes, Simon Le Bon, and Roger Taylor were the three members that founded Arcadia. And it was kind of like a side project, right? They were just going to get together, put out a couple songs, do an album, or whatever. It was kind of in this dead period of time. And not everybody came back. Some folks went and did personal stuff. And they only released one album. Probably no shock there. But this is the full group of Duran Duran. And obviously, those are the three guys there. They tried to rebrand themselves. I'll come to that here in just a second. This is the only album they released, which is called, what was the name of it? I forget now. So Red the Rose. And not a lot of, I mean, it had like 3 songs that were probably their biggest songs. Things that songs we probably never heard of. Their best one was, I think this album reached number 23 in the U.S. charts, which is crazy.
No way.
Yes,
no way.
I'm not even kidding you. And it is like unequivocally, unapologetically 1985 sounding in every possible way. It sounds a lot like Duran Duran. So if you're a fan of Duran Duran, this is probably going to be right up your alley. You're probably going to enjoy this. But it did produce 3 top 40 hits. And there was one called The Promise. There was Goodbye Forever, or Goodbye is Forever, and then Election Day, which kind of weird that we're doing that on this day since today's inauguration day, but that one actually became a top 10 single. Do you believe that?
No.
No. Okay, of course not.
I'm convinced you're making this is all fan fiction.
Yeah,
like, one of my favorite bands is Duran Duran. They made another band, but that band only had one album, but the album was awesome. It had 3 top 40s and a top 10 that you've never heard of. Okay,
right.
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah, very plausible. So this album is it's okay. Like I said, it sounds very 1986. There's some songs on there I didn't really care for. I think those 3 are probably the best ones. I think The Promise is actually pretty decent. And I realized as I was listening to the song, because I had never heard of them until this novel and did the research, and then when I started listening to the album, most of the songs were just kind of like skip, skip, skip. And then I got to The Promise, and there was something really catchy about it. It was 2 things that stood out. It was whoever was doing the background vocals, which turns out to be Sting, which I've got a picture up here on the left-hand side. And the person doing the guitar was the guitar and bass are absolutely amazing. And I was like freaking out about the guitar because it gets into this like long kind of a guitar solo riff towards the end of the song. And it turns out it's David Gilmour from Pink Floyd. And he's, arguably one of the greatest and maybe one of the most underrated guitarists ever. But he plays the lead guitar throughout this entire track. And then on the bass is Mark Egan, which he doesn't stand out because he didn't really do a whole lot. He wasn't in these big, super powerful bands or anything. But
no, he was like the smartest Ghostbuster.
Yeah, right. Mark Egan. Yeah. Mark Egan is his name. But the bass guitar in the album stands out. I mean, it's like, Geddy Lee worthy in terms of how it sounds and just how forefront it sounds in the album. So that's all I can really say about the album outside of probably that song as being the big highlight. So if you have any interest, go check that song out. They did, like I said, let me go back over here. As you can tell, this is like Duran Duran, the leather, the New Republic jackets. Wow, I've been doing a lot of Star Wars lately.
Actually, that would still qualify, wouldn't it? Because
yes, it would be.
That's kind of what they're rocking these days.
But it was like the members only jacket, right? They had the big poofy hairs. And I mean, it was all very much 80s with Duran Duran. But then when you look at them here as Arcadia, this is the style. They were going for more of a clean cut look. They're wearing tuxedos here. They cut their hair. They were all uniform. So, I mean, they weren't really, it wasn't like hey, let's try to pull one over on everybody and, like a Gaines type album with Garth Brooks.
Chris Gaines.
Nothing like that. Which, by the way, I saw Chris Gaines perform today at the inauguration.
Did he really?
Yeah. No, it was Garth Brooks, but
I was like, what the?
No, he's not bringing that back. Did we talk about Garth Brooks on the show?
I don't know that we have, like, other than in passing.
Huh?
But
I got into the lengthy conversation with someone like a couple months ago, and it felt like this show because it was that long, but maybe not. I don't know. Okay. Anyways, so this is that's them, Arcadia. So they changed their look up a little bit. And then lastly, the only thing I had on them, because this is probably like 4 minutes too long already. This is the painting that inspired the word Arcadia. So they saw this picture here, or this painting. It's called Et in Arcadia Ego by Nicholas Poussin. Which translates into the Arcadian Shepherds.
No, that doesn't.
I'm making this up. Yeah, it says,
yeah, you're totally making. So, having studied Latin for the better part of 2 semesters in high school.
There we go.
Right?
Here we go.
Right. It actually, so it's a little darker than that. So what it's depicting is the shepherds. But this is a really dark Italian piece. You can actually find at the Louvre. That's where this painting hangs today.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if you're to literally translate that, it's not Italian, right? It's Latin. The name is Latin. Yeah. It literally translates into even in Arcadia, I am here, right? Ego, as you know, stands for, it's still the same meaning, means I, a sense of self.
Right.
So it is traditionally translated in Italian as, even in Arcadia, I, death, am still here. So they're right here these shepherds are around the tomb of a man, right? So it's a much darker meaning, this painting, than you would think. It's not about the shepherds. It's about death reminding the Arcadians that he's there, even in this beautiful country of Arcadia.
This guy know how to party or what?
Hey, I'm just correcting Latin. That's what I'm here for. Which word? Okay, read those again and tell me which word you thought meant shepherd.
Shepherds. In. Et in translates into
well,
shepherd.
You speak enough Spanish to know that a couple of those words, like in, is literally in.
You don't know that. All right. Well, 10 minutes in, I got that joke off my chest already, so you're welcome. All right, we're going to move on. We're going to talk about Huey Lewis and the News back in time. This was the quote. I forgot to get the quotes on this one. The quote here was when they were talking about the clock, right? So, but you've got a lot of stuff here on, well, actually you don't have that much. I thought you'd have more, but that's not to say we won't get into more. But go on, please. Huey Lewis and the News.
Yeah, so appropriately, it is Huey and Lewis and the News that we know him by. But, going to the next slide there, Albert.
Oh, sorry.
He's actually Hugh Anthony Craig III and the News. That's probably less flashy than just going with Huey Lewis. So he was born in New York City of Irish American parents, identifies as Polish, and is currently 69 years old. Just about everybody knows who Huey Lewis was. Most people might not know that he attended Cornell University and was seeking his engineering degree, did not finish school. And even though he was in Cornell, he was not a member of Andy Bernard's band, Here Comes Trouble. I don't know if you get the Office reference.
Right. Yeah.
So after he left there, he started playing, try to hit the English pub band scene. So he was really originally known as a blues player, right? So he went originally with the spelling Hughie, Huey Lewis spelling, and then for his jazz career, changed it to like bluesy Huey Lewis. He actually played harmonica on Thin Lizzy's album Live and Dangerous that was Grammy nominated.
Oh,
right?
Really?
Which, pretty good, yeah. So, talking about Huey Lewis in broad strokes, he's known for an array of great hits that everybody's heard of. Heart of Rock and Roll, I Want a New Drug, Heart and Soul, If This Is It, Jacob's Ladder, and probably a couple others that I'm leaving out. Albert, what is the best song in Huey's discography?
Boy, I'd say Hip to Be Square.
Hip to Be Square? I can dig that. That's a solid choice.
I don't know that whole album. What is the name of it? It's not the sports bar one. What is it called?
No, it was the one after Sports. So
dang it, both of those were good though. Sports is actually really good though. I enjoyed that one.
Yes. So the success of Sport is actually what led Steven Spielberg and Zemeckis to actually approach him to do the song for this. Mm-hmm. He was getting hot, but Huey Lewis didn't want to do the music for Back to the Future. He didn't really know how to write, is how he explained it. I don't know how to write a movie song. I don't want to do it. But they were so excited about getting him because he was hitting the peak of his career with the majority of the songs we just discussed. So they said, look, man, we don't care what you write, just whatever. And he's like, cool, I'll tell you what, I'll just send you the next song that we get out of the studio. I'll send it over to you.
Yeah.
That song happened to be The Power of Love, right? So clearly The Power of Love has nothing to do with breaking Back to the Future. It just happened to be the first song that he wrote after that. They released that as a single in advance of the movie. Yeah. And so when they released that single, it went to #1. It was the first #1 hit they had, first top 10 hit they ever had. It was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Song. And so Zemeckis went back to him and said, dude, you got to write another song for this, man, because you killed it. Yeah. It's already charting before the movie's even coming out. So he went through and wrote Back in Time. And so Back in Time, as you guys know, is just basically a recap of the entire movie. It describes the movie verse by verse as it goes through it. And it's got an interesting plot point through the film because it's played technically 3 times. Both times when he gets up to his alarm clock, that fancy pants alarm clock we talked about during the last episode. And then again during the credits, you can hear the entire song. But if you weren't paying attention, and apparently my wife wasn't, Huey Lewis is actually in this film, right? So there's a part right at the beginning of the movie where...
Isn't he like a teacher or something?
Yeah, he's a school administrator.
That's right.
Right. And so Michael J. Fox's band, the Pinheads, go up on stage and actually start playing Power of Love. And they start playing it, but it's a really heavy version of that song. And then freaking Huey Lewis gets up and says, "Thank you, fellas, but I'm afraid you're just too darn loud." And that was something that Kim and Robert decided to do on the fly to have him in the scene, kind of like a wink to for him being in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually was showing this to the wife last week. We were just watching the first 10 minutes of the movie in 4K because I'm a total nerd, just like you. So I'm watching the 4K just so I watched 10 minutes of the 1080p and then 10 minutes of the 4K to see if I can tell the difference.
Yeah.
If I'm still young enough with the eyes that it matters. Like, hey, stop investing in this 8K technology. I can't distinguish between 720 and this.
I'm going back to 640.
Oh man. So like I said, this song didn't chart, was never released as a single in the US, was released overseas. And he didn't perform it when he came to San Antonio. So he comes to San Antonio quite a bit. The last time he was in San Antonio, he was about probably 15 minutes from our house in Helotes. Right. So
really?
yeah. He used to play at that little bar there. I think is it Green's Country Store right there in Helotes on Culebra. So he played there. This whole set list is out there, but he didn't play, and it was cheap to get in. It was like $40 for like proper seating, right? Like if you just wanted, it was $25 just to get in. And I think it was like $50 if you wanted a table with a chair, which was awesome.
So you're saying this is a Power of, you're talking about Back in Time. You're saying he didn't play at the last?
No, I didn't play. Oh, he always plays Power of Love, but did not play Back in Time.
Back in Time. Okay.
In fact, if you want to hear Back in Time, you're going to have to listen to one of the many cover bands out there for Huey Lewis and the News, including Back in Time. Right? So
those guys down there in the left-hand corner.
That's right. Oh, it's Floor's Country Store, not
Floor's.
Green's.
I was like, Green's is in Green, Texas.
That's right. It is. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
yes,
Floor's.
Sir.
Famous for country bands as well. But wow. So what's the deal? Why doesn't, is there like legal rights or something tied up with this thing?
No. It's just I actually listened to I watched a bunch of their YouTube videos because these dudes are full on. They're doing the show, bro. They are pretending to be Huey Lewis and the News. I mean, it's not like they're just performing their songs. They're trying to do like dance numbers and stuff. It's fantastic. They're currently not touring, but if you're on the East Coast, check those guys out if you want to. They got a lot of YouTube videos. I have no affiliation with them whatsoever. Right. They're not paying me for sure. but I don't know. Apparently they're not performing right now because there's some kind of pandemic going on. But Huey Lewis actually released an album in December of last year. He hasn't been toured.
Saw that. How was that received? Because I think I might have started listening to it, and it just was too like grown up for me. If that makes any sense, like I
thought there were a couple of tracks that were really throwback, but you definitely still have Huey Lewis's distinct voice. And I was really impressed with that, right? So he stopped touring in 2018 after he was diagnosed with Meniere's disease. And that's like doctors don't understand a lot about what causes it other than it might be a genetic defect, but it's really a problem with your inner ear. And so it causes the person to experience moments of vertigo, confusion, tinnitus, and then eventually hearing loss. And so in 2000, Huey Lewis lost hearing in one of his ears and was down like 20%. And then about 6 years ago, he lost hearing in his other ear as well. And it fluctuates. So sometimes he might hear good and be able to sing, and sometimes he can't. So it took them a long time to record this album. This album was actually in production for almost 8 years before they got it out because of the issues he was having. But man, I got to say, it still sounds very 80s. I think there's something distinct about a lot of the music we're going to talk about today, in that when you listen to it, it takes you to it's the sound, the melodies take you to a very specific point in time. And it was a time where I was pretty freaking happy, right? Like as a kid, it takes you back, even though these are new songs, they have that old feel to them.
Yeah. Would you say it takes you back in time?
Well played, sir. I guess I would. I wasn't even going for that.
Let's just end the show here. Okay. We'll be back next week.
Yeah, that's it.
That's all you got?
Oh, I thought for the entire show. I thought this was going to be the world record.
Yeah.
20-minute show.
20, right on the dot, 20 minutes. Meniere's disease. Yeah, poor guy. Man, I didn't know that. That's crazy that... so I imagine, like, over time, though, as his hearing deteriorates, it's going to be harder to sing. Although, I wonder if he can still hear, like, his internal sound, or I don't know how that would work, but...
So what he says is that, he was interviewed and he talked about it last year. And when he was interviewed, he said, look, there are times where when I have my hearing aids in, I can hear fine. Like, it feels okay. But when it's at its worst, I can hear nothing.
Mm.
He was like, so it's difficult for me to sing. He was like, but the interesting thing he said about it was when he's singing, he can't really even tell if he's singing where he should be singing because there's no way to play it back so he can hear his voice, what he should sound like. So he's depending on others to
There are
give him that
people, yeah.
feedback. Yeah, and that's
Somebody
got to
in the
be
sound booth
awkward.
going, yep.
Yeah, it's
Good,
got to
dude.
be awkward. Yeah.
All right. Well, cool. They're definitely a favorite band of mine. They always have been. And a lot of it is, like you said, nostalgia. It takes you back to that period of like the, 84, 85, 86 in that range, and just all the memories that kind of go with it. But they had a very like positive influence, music influence. I think a lot of their, think about their videos were always like humorous, right? They always had that about them. I think that's just kind of indicative of who they are as a band too. Always joking around and doing all that stuff. So good stuff, man. Hope that guy continues to keep singing. He's got a great, great voice. Let's get into some of the fringe at this point. So we're going to talk about.
Is this fringe? It can't be fringe.
It's not fringe. I mean, I guess it. Well, I'll let you decide after we get through this. So this is Talking Heads, and the quote says, "Yeah, it kind of feels like it." I said, "Start morning playlist, please." This must be the place. Naive Melody by Talking Heads began to play over the house speakers, and I immediately felt more relaxed. So Talking Heads is a band that started in 1975. Now, I was very surprised by this because I, probably like a lot of us, didn't really even know about them or hear about them until early 80s. But yeah, since 1975, the three band members are, there was three primary band members. There's an extra guy in the back there. They had some touring folks. But this is the first, these are the four that were pretty much with it throughout the entire time. So you've got David Byrne on lead vocals and guitar. You've got Chris Franz on drums. You've got Tina Weymouth, who's on bass and backing vocals. And then you've got Jerry Harrison, who's on synth organs and backing vocals. So these guys, originally their band name came from, I think it was Tina. I think she was flipping through, or no, it wasn't. I think it was David Byrne. But one of them was looking through a TV guide, and they saw in there were, like, it was around the time the politics were going on, big, kind of like Barry right now. But they saw this in there. They were talking about Talking Heads. She didn't know what it was. She looked at it. She said it came from an issue of TV Guide where the term was used to describe people talking with, quote, all content and no action. And she felt that seemed to fit them pretty well. So that's where they got the band name.
Pretty well.
Yeah. Lots and lots of talking, not a lot of action. That pretty much sums up this. Yeah, exactly.
Story of my marriage.
Yeah. Whoa.
Single tear.
This is and they got off to a start, like a really jump kick start, because their first gig was opening for the Ramones. Now the Ramones in '75 were, popular, but they weren't like the Ramones that it would still be a couple more years before they really rocketed. But not a bad start to their career. So they got a lot of exposure immediately up front after opening for them. They tried to sign a few albums, really didn't go anywhere. They finally did land a deal in 1977, which produced the first album, which is Talking Heads 77, the aptly named title there. That spawned Psycho Killer, which was a popular song. It reached number 92 on the Billboard charts, top 100. So, I mean, it broke it. I mean, it was kind of their biggest, hit, obviously, there. And if you've heard this song, right? The Psycho Killer. Dun, 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 guess you say. Yeah.
I literally, you know what? I just heard it. So I'm in the hotel. This my life is exciting. I'm in New Orleans and just hang out in the hotel waiting for the podcast. So I decided to order room service, which doesn't exist during COVID apparently at this hotel. I had to walk all the way to the lobby to pick up my food, like some kind of commoner. But anyway, I'm watching TV and I'm eating my food, and I'm watching this terrible Vin Diesel movie, which might be redundant to say both of those things. But anyway, now Vin Diesel's in some good movies. Pitch Black, awesome. But I'm watching Bloodshot. Have you seen that?
Bloodshot? No.
But the Psycho Killer's featured in that movie prominently. It's prominently featured, yeah, in that. There's the antagonist, or at least one of the antagonists in the film, is torturing Vin Diesel, and he's dancing to Psycho Killer a la Reservoir Dogs. It's well done.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Psycho Killer. Qu'est-ce que c'est? Ba 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 ba. That's that whole song. If you've ever heard it.
Oh, is that what those words are?
What? Qu'est-ce que c'est? Yeah, right
Yeah.
there on the screen.
Yeah,
It's
but
French.
those are the lyrics.
Yep.
I would be interested to know what people thought those words were before they put it in there, because everybody knows Psycho Killer. I thought it was Psycho Killer, what you say. I really did. I thought those were the lyrics.
What you say? No.
What you say?
Qu'est-ce que c'est? Which is
I guess I got to be honest. I've never karaoke'd that song, because if that popped up on the screen, I'd be like, "What the? What you say?
What you say?" Ba, 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 ba. It translates into "What is this? It."
I think at this point we can't believe anything that you're translating from a foreign language, and what it means is Milwaukee.
Oh yeah, the donkey is open. They're an interesting band. You look at their first two albums, and or actually first three albums. So you've got the Talking Heads 77. That was their first one. The one in the top left that I'm showing here is called More Songs About Buildings and Food in 78, 79. Like, this is every year they're cranking out these albums. Fear of Music in 1979 is in the bottom left. If you just pause right there, those albums are very very different than when we get to like Talking Heads, Remain in the Light, where you get Once in a Lifetime, which we're going to talk about here. But they had a lot of influences. Like, they were influenced by Afro jazz. There was a lot of punk, a lot of funk music, new wave music. It's really all over the spectrum on those first three albums, so much that they're almost unrecognizable at times. And what's actually really neat and kind of sad at the same time, you fast forward to today and the music they're doing, it's very, very complex stuff. It's hard. It's almost even hard to appreciate, because they've just got it's a very eclectic sound that still continues today, but just much more complex, much more, I guess they feel more confident about what they're doing. And there's some great stories in here. Like, Hayworth didn't even really know how to play the bass when she started. They were just like, we need a bass player, go learn how to play it. And so over the years, she's gotten, of course, better and better. And that's kind of the case with a lot of these musicians. They were all artists at first. They weren't even in music. They were all artists at a school, decided to put a band together, and then they just kind of went from there. So and then over the years, they bled in some of their artistic capabilities and artistic influences into the music and how they presented music and the videos, the next video notwithstanding, and all that. So they're a very creative bunch that have stuck together for a pretty long time. But when we get to like Remain in the Light, which is in 1980, and they release Once in a Lifetime, that's when people really took note of who they were. And that song made it all the way to number 14 in the UK. I've got a little picture here. I think we're all probably familiar with the video. But that made it to number 14 in the UK, did not chart in the US. Although the video, but the video was rampant on MTV. I mean, it was all over the place. And it got a lot of heavy play. And from that point on, that's when they really started kind of putting their, I guess, name in the sand, if you will, or drawing the line in the sand, whatever, here in the US. But in the UK and some of the other countries, they were pretty big already. But yeah, it's interesting that song is as popular as it ever was, as popular as it is, never really charted here in the US. So I've got some little jiffies here of the video. Well, I didn't mean to do that. This is the first, 5 little jiffies here I'm showing are from the video itself. And I mean, if you've ever seen this, it kind of just sticks with you. It's very inexpensively done. That was on purpose. They were really trying to get a video put together. And if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, I've got a little jiffy of Tony Basil. So from Oh, Mickey, You're So Fine. Turns out that when they needed somebody to direct this video, she volunteered. So she actually is the one that directed this video, and she's on record as saying, I was just trying to get a video made for as cheaply as possible without really making it look too cheap at the same time. So they were trying to balance this line. I guess given the technologies of the time, this was that line in the middle, but it's a bizarre video. It's a really great song. There's a lot of like singing in it, but then there's a lot of talking in it. And you may ask yourself, that whole thing. And that's
was
just
very well done right there, by the way.
Thank you. I don't get that very often from you.
No, you never get it. Never.
But David Burns, his style is very unique, and that's it. He's done this throughout his whole career, even on more recent albums. He's got that very unique style of singing and talking, kind of. I don't know, like I don't. Beavis and Butthead did it best. There's an episode of Beavis and Butthead where they both are watching this video and they start mimicking the video, which I think was pretty hilarious. But and then a nice little fun fact: I think it was through the production of this music video that Tony Basil and David Byrne actually hooked up. So they were dating there for a while right after this. So I bet that was a weird relationship.
Had to be.
Yep. They went on to have obviously a number of hits. Burning Down the House in 1983, that made it to number 9 in the U.S. So this is 3 years after Once in a Lifetime came out. This Must Be the Place, Naive Melody. That's the one that was referenced in the Ready Player 2 novel. Came out in 1983 also. That one hit number 62, so not as high, but it's a very unique song, which makes sense given what Wade was talking about it there. The other two were And She Was in 1985. That reached number 54. And then their last big single that they had was Wild Wild Life in 1986. Wild, wild life. That
Yep.
I don't know the lyrics. I can't remember.
But they're pretty good.
Yeah, that one got to number 25. So pretty decent song. I mean, they were, still cranking out hits, I guess, if you will. Unfortunately, the band did break up in 1991. David Byrne really just wanted to kind of go off and do his own thing. I mean, the band had already there was somewhat of a falling out as with most bands when they break up. But so David Byrne went out and did his own thing. The other band members tried to start their own band called Stillhead, or it was like really, really. What was the name of the band? I'm drawing a blank now on it. So it was everybody without him. He tried to file a lawsuit, so it got really ugly there for a while. They did get inducted back into the Hall of Fame, or they were inducted into the Hall of Fame back in 2002. So they did reunite. I think they played like 4 songs at that ceremony. But yeah, they are no longer around. Like I said, those last albums really aren't really much to talk about. But they've obviously got a place in pop culture history from the music video and the songs, and just David Byrne's unique style as well.
Yeah, I've actually heard a number of their songs on different albums, and you know who they remind me stylistically of, and I don't mean this in terms of musicality, but just their approach to how they look at music. They struck me very much like Radiohead in that, if you listen to Radiohead's discography, a lot of people know the popular songs, right? But if you listen to all of it, you can tell that they're trying to find a new sound, even when a sound is comfortable for them. And you feel like they're doing the same thing, like Talking Heads is doing it throughout their, granted, this, Dave is nowhere near as good a vocalist, but still, I think when you listen to their music, they were just trying to fit in there. And that seems to be the story of a lot of the progressive bands. In fact, a lot of the bands that are mentioned in this section of Ready Player One are all nods to those types of music, because all of them are a bit eccentric, right? They are not those mainstream songs that you would expect to hear, except for maybe Huey Lewis. But when some of the other bands we're going to talk about tonight, whether it's Talking Heads or Flock of Seagulls, or Depeche Mode, those were bands that were creating new sounds that, in my opinion, didn't exist before that.
No, that's a good point. I like the Radiohead analogy, because that one, as I was listening through the discography of Talking Heads, I was getting that same vibe where they were really experimenting, trying to find their place, trying to stay different at times and stay ahead of everything. So I just remember them from this short period of time because of the new wave influence, and I think that's what most people do. But if you go listen to it, there's a lot of like Afro funk and Afro jazz in their music, and it just sounds completely night and day different than some of the main stuff, titles that we are all very, very familiar with. So okay, well, I think that's all I got on them. Let's talk about these guys. Did I spell that right? Yeah, Flock of Seagulls.
Yeah, that's right.
Let me give you the quote. One night, we decided that Space Age Love Song by Flock of Seagulls was our song, and then we listened to it over and over again for hours while we talked or made love. Oh.
No.
All right, well.
No. All right, so I know we didn't comment on that.
About the hair?
I thought we were going to talk about the book quote. That's uncalled for, sir. No. So, yeah, I don't know that I can ever listen to this song again because of that quote, right? Like, I think there's a weird part of me that's sitting there going, okay, so he's basically Ernest Cline. I know who these characters are supposed to be in real life.
Yeah.
And so you're getting these terrible images while you're also getting Flock of Seagulls in your head. It's uncalled for. Like, don't do that in a book, man. don't do that to me. All right. So yes, we're going to talk about the hair. Maybe we'll start with talking about the hair, right? So Albert, I will tell you that I had at least once in my childhood attempted to pull this off using a hair dryer, a bunch of Aquanet. I could not do it.
What?
Right? Yeah, because my bangs weren't long enough ever to pull off the front piece.
Huh.
But crazy. So Flock of Seagulls, they're from Liverpool, England. Brothers Mike Score and Ali Score, who played drums, and Mike obviously vocals and keyboard. We're joined by Frank Maudsley, who played the bass, and Paul Reynolds on guitar. This is a crazy hairstyle I couldn't pull off, but it's not like we haven't ever had crazy hair before. In fact, the 80s, 90s era was known for crazy hair. Albert, what's the craziest hairstyle you think you've ever had? And then I will tell you what it was.
Let's see. I had in 2000. Yeah, in 2000, I had all blue, like a bright, almost the color of the shirt right here, blue, and it was like spiky everywhere. And they would call me Sonic, and I didn't really like the name, but I asked for it, I guess, at that point.
That's terrible.
That wasn't the best one?
Oh, no, it's got to be. It's got to be a winner.
Yeah,
I don't know where I was. I must have been defending our country somewhere. I don't remember actually seeing that haircut.
Yeah,
I do remember.
I have pictures, and I need to find them. And if I do, I will gladly post them without any shame on our social media pages, so you can see what.
Oh, you're doing it. I demand to see these. This has got it. I've never seen that before. What I do remember is us being in high school and deciding we would both dye our hair. And so we dyed our hair red, as you might recall. And, we didn't have the money to buy the follow-up, like change it back to the regular color. So we went through like the half of a school year just slowly getting the roots out. And it was even red by that point. By the time that we got like 2 months in, my hair was just bright orange. And so for those that don't know, Albert and I, when we got our first jobs, actually pooled our money together for all of the summer and then went clothes shopping for clothes that we could share. Because at that point we were living together. Right. So we have there was this one shirt. I know you know which one I'm talking about. Yeah. It's like this flower rayon shirt. It was like a dark yellow with like mustard and burnt sequoia colors, right? We had all that going on. And my hair was brighter than that shirt, but it was the shirt that best complemented my ridiculous looking hair. Nice.
I'm matching my hair with this flower right here. If you look closely, you can see that's the flower.
That's it. I'm right here. Yep. Color coordinated.
Collaborating.
So Mike Score here has described the music of Flock of Seagulls as a balance between Pink Floyd and Punk Floyd. And I kind of like that. So two ways he defines his music is that and futuristic music. What they were trying to do was to make music that sounded ethereal. They wanted music that sounded like it was written tomorrow. And that's how they would always put it. When's this music from? It's from tomorrow. All right. So they're another one of those bands that was trying to experiment with their sound as they kind of went through the process. So originally this band was going to be called Level 7, but then Level 42, which you might know, they were kind of big in the 80s, came out. So they had to change their name again. And they had listened to a Strangler song called Toiler by on the Sea. And it actually went to a concert where he was performing it. And David swears that while him and his brother are at this concert, that that Strangler pointed at him and said, "Flock of Seagulls." And he was like, "That's our name." Right?
That's so not true.
He says it's true. He says he swears by it because the typical reaction when he gets interviewed and that the question is asked, I don't know how many times, there's a bunch of interviews out there. The typical response is always, "Man, that's not true." Because everybody else says, "Well, isn't it also a John Livingston Seagull song or John Livingston Seagull by Richard Bach? Isn't it a poem?" And they're like, "Yeah, it is, I guess." That's not it. So as huge as they were with the two songs that they had in the early '80s, they split in '85. They came back in '95. Dave came back with a new lineup, and they got back together for a reunion in 2003 with the original lineup. So that's Flock of Seagulls in a nutshell. The song itself was released in there it is. There's the book, right? And there's Flock of Seagulls there, and then there's Strangler there. That's that band in the right hand section.
Yeah. Those guys look like psycho killers, all of them. Qu'est-ce que c'est?
What you say?
What you say?
So the song itself was actually released in 1982. It was their fourth single and the follow-up to I Ran, which is one everybody knows. Mike wrote this song largely himself. So they were at a rehearsal and he was putting this song together, Space Age Love Song, and he could just hear it in his head. He started playing it on a Casio keyboard after rehearsal, and then the lyrics just came quickly thereafter. And what I find interesting is the way that he describes the song and the song's meaning is similar to, it was a throwback to Ready Player One at the end of it, because the song is about intimacy, the intimacy of eye contact and chemistry with somebody who you may have known, but now you're fully connected to. And so it's like a song that could have played there. So it's apropos that I suppose our protagonists are making love to it. Although
Right.
again, I literally, there's something in my throat that wants to come out every time I say it. I want to just stop. So unlike the video we were talking about before, this video for Space Age Love Song was directed by Anthony Van den End, who you might know. He's directed a ton of stuff in the 80s. So when they did I Ran, they didn't spend a lot of money on it. In this one, they went out and got a good director. They got the director that did, like, he did The Colts, She Sells Sanctuary, Rufus and Shaka Khan's Ain't Nobody, Simply Red, Holding Back the Years, a song you are familiar with, Rush's Lock and Key, and virtually every song done by Samantha Fox that had a video was done by the same director.
Naughty Girls Need Love Too, man. Naughty Girls Need Love Too.
Touch Me. All night long. That's great. It's great music. But anyway, this song, Space Age Love Song, didn't get a lot of play on MTV because the video just wasn't very good. It was just them basically playing music, and this world-class director just put a smoke machine there, put some mirrors in the background, and occasionally moved the camera around. It was terrible.
I don't think I remember this video, but terrible videos I think are indicative of the 80s too. Like, it seems like there were so many of them, but yeah, your point's well made.
Yeah, he could have just called Tony Basil to come make a video for him. Right, it would have been better than that.
Like, Talking Heads was killing it compared to this one.
Yeah, it's terrible. That's a picture of him down there in the lower right. That's the director. So, congratulations, guy. Right. Well done. And then there's a little screen grab of it there as well. But Space Age Love Song was, not a huge hit, but it still peaked at 30 in the US, but it was in the top 100 in over half a dozen countries. So this song, Space Age Love Song, actually charted higher than I Ran in the UK.
Oh, right? Wow. So, that's crazy. Yeah. I imagine it's probably the opposite here in the US because.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. The song did peak at 30 in the US, but I Ran was a top 10.
Yeah.
So
right.
There you go. The video was actually re-released for this song in 1991 to coincide with the release of the film Career Opportunities. Oh, yes. With Jennifer Connelly wearing a white tank top and walking through a Target the majority of the video. Yeah, that works. That's better. It's better than your other video.
Yeah.
It's better on, you could mute it. It's better. But it was also in, I don't remember hearing this in Spider-Man, but it was in Spider-Man Homecoming. Do you remember that?
No, I saw that movie. I've seen it once, and that was at the theater, and I haven't seen it since. It was a great movie. Don't get me wrong. I just haven't seen it very often.
Oh, no, it's good. I'm going to have to rewatch it to listen for this because I don't remember hearing it in the film, what point it takes place. Yeah. So Irony Dave's now bald, so doesn't have the flock of seagulls hair anymore. He's fully bald.
Oh.
No, I didn't put a picture. Why would I degrade the man like that? Like,
because that's what we do on this show.
No, we degrade each other.
Yeah, that's what it
Each
is.
other. That's different. We try to avoid slamming these celebrities that might hit your social media profile and call you out on it.
Yeah.
All right.
We need the followers. Okay. Now we are going to talk about Timbuk 3. I've been waiting to talk about these guys forever. All right. So the quote is, "Everything will be fine," he assured us. This is Og talking to them. "You're all going to do a fantastic job." At that time, we had plenty of reasons to doubt his prediction, but we all acted as though we believed him, and his faith in us was justified. "Our future's so bright, we got to wear shades," H declared as she slipped on a pair of Ray-Bans and boarded her jet bound for her ancestral homeland. So, this is it's one of those references that is made. They don't really call out the band, of course, and so we picked up on it, as probably most of you did as well. So this is a band called Timbuk 3. They are a Grammy nominated band, Timbuk 3. So let's not take that away from them, okay? They started in 1984 by Pat McDonald and Barbara McDonald. They were a husband and wife couple. They had just gotten married. They had a baby. They had a new album coming out. And the story goes, for the title, the name of the song, "Future So Bright, they got to wear shades." It was they had all these things going for them, and the wife is actually the one. So is it Pat? Sorry. Yeah, Barbara. Sorry, Barbara is the one that said, she said, the future is looking so bright, we'll have to wear sunglasses. And her husband went down and tried to jot that down, and what he translated was, "The future's so bright, I gotta wear shades." And so that's where they got the title for the song. This song did really well. It got all the way up to number 19 in the U.S. charts. I remember at the time I think probably teenage years, and there was you remember the Columbia House record things that they would send you?
Yeah.
Oh, I made so much money off those guys. They're still trying to collect from me.
I don't think they
even
are
to this day.
I think they lost a class action lawsuit and they went
Did they?
defunct. Yeah.
Oh, good. I should have got into that. But this
they-
was one of the albums that I picked on my little, because you had to put like a penny. Remember, like it was a nickel.
Mhm.
So they would send you here. I'll explain to the younglings that are watching right now. So they would send you this form, and it had all these stickers that you could lick and stick on the back. And so these stickers were all these new albums that had just come out for probably in the last year, 2 years, some of the greatest albums of all time. And you would pull out this long piece of sticker paper that had all these tiny little stickers, like stamps almost, connected, and had albums on there, and they had a little number. And then you would pick like your 10 albums that you wanted, 10 cassettes, 10 records, whatever. And you had to lick these things and put all 10 of them on there. Then you would take a nickel, and it had a little slot for you to take that nickel and slide the nickel into that cardboard slot, put it in an envelope and mail it off. And what they would do is send you these 10 albums for a nickel free. You had to pay for shipping, which was, like, I don't know, $6 or whatever it was at the time. And then they basically locked you in for life, that you had to buy so many albums per year thereafter. So by the end of if you like did the math on this thing, you were paying way more than you should have for these albums, right? It was kind of like it was a scam, really, is what it was. But yeah, I mean,
they didn't actually you didn't even pick the music. So you would just get tapes every month.
Right. They would send you no. So what it was is they would pick one for you. They would send it to you. And if you didn't like it, you had to send it back, which was already a problem. But yeah, and then they would just charge you like, $20 for this tape, when tapes at the time were like $12.99. That was like probably on the high end, right? $9.99 was probably more common. But yeah, you're right. They would just send you these. And then every once in a while, they would just show up with 6 more tapes, and they would say, "Hey, we picked these for you, but feel free to send these back, and you don't have to pay for anything." And then, of course, people wouldn't send them back. And next thing you know, they were in collection agencies, and it was just the biggest scam whatsoever. But I had the last laugh because I was under the age of 18, and I was just mailing these things off left and right, and they couldn't hold me liable for them. They went after my parents. They couldn't do anything about it. So I was like, whatever. I'm 13 years old. I'm going to get them. So I got a lot of albums from this. Timbuk 3 was one of them. I remember the Breakfast Club. If you remember that band. I got... what was it? Right on Track, I think was the name of the song for that one. I got U2's Joshua Tree from there. I got some LL Cool J. I mean, you name it. I was just getting all kinds of these tapes. All right, but I'm digressing here. So This is Timbuk 3, and
Well, that story is far more interesting than Timbuk 3. I mean, we're
there
surely
is
going to
not
be
a
able to
lot.
do that for like 2 to 3 minutes on that. Hey, little known legal advice: if you receive something in the mail that you did not order and has monetary value, you have no obligation to pay for it or to return it. So there you go.
Oh,
And part of that stemmed from the uh, judicial findings in this case, the case that had to do with Columbia House music.
really?
Yep.
What was the other one? There was Columbia House, and then there was another one too that was.
I don't know, but that one had the bonus where if you added like a quarter, you got to pick like 5 bonus. So it's funny because you were like, yeah, CDs. I don't know that I ordered a CD. I was still in tapes.
Did I say CDs? If I said I totally
Yeah,
did not mean
I
that.
was totally in tapes because I
No.
remember my first order from them was. Can you remember the first tapes you received from them? So for me, it was Appetite for Destruction, Beastie Boys' License to Ill. What else? Bon Jovi.
Slippery When Wet.
You know it. And it was already old at that point, but it was still cool that now I owned it.
Yeah, it was probably about the same time. Because I think the three that I rattled off were one of the first three that I picked up. I eventually got like Edie Brickell and New Bohemians.
Oh no, I wasn't that sophisticated. I was still like Tiffany and Debbie Gibson. I was still rocking all of that. Oh, Cool It Now. I think I got that one.
Oh yeah, New Edition.
Nice. New Edition.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So Timbuk 3.
There they are. Hey, little bit of trivia for you. You know, I love my music, but I had no idea that this band had a woman in it.
Oh, really? Yeah. There's a husband and wife couple.
I didn't know that. I thought it was just some dude.
Yeah. They no, it was these two, and then they would go on and do the song, and so they had a boombox, and so they would play the background music on the boombox. He would get on the harmonica. Pat would get on the. Barbara did. I don't know what she did. She did vocals back. I mean, they did whatever they could, but they didn't have enough people in the band, so they had a boombox that they would literally put a tape and hit play, and that's what would give them the rest of the music they needed. And eventually, they picked up like a third member when they started going on tour. But yeah, I mean, these guys they were doing pretty good. Like I said, if you look here, I've got an image up right now. They were actually nominated for Best New Artist in 1987, and they were up against New Shoes with "I Can't Wait." You remember them? I can't wait.
Yep. Wait. So I'm just convinced that based on your description of how they performed, they were basically just Grammy-nominated karaoke artists. Like they weren't actually. Hey, let me put this, because if I describe that to somebody, hey, I'm going to put on some music, I'm going to sing over it.
Can I get a Grammy? Karaoke, my friend.
It's Friday at Will's house, is what that is.
No, that's a true story. That's how they got by for a very long time. They've got let's see, Glass Tiger was another one that was nominated for Best New Artist. Timbuk 3, Simply Red, the Soulless Ginger there. I've never seen this album, but it says Best Ballads. I think that's all they did was ballads, if I'm not mistaken. And then Bruce Hornsby in the Rain.
Is it just the 2 tracks on that Simply Red?
For Simply Red?
It's just two 12-inch mixes.
I did not know this guy was white, honestly.
Really?
Kind of like UB40 too. Like I didn't until I saw the music videos. Like, whoa, and Rick Astley.
Rick Astley. I was the first time I heard of him before the music video. I did not think he was white. Simply Red, I knew was a white guy.
No, I didn't know that.
It's more whining than soul to me.
Yeah,
Simply Red.
That's true.
And Bruce Hornsby is amazing.
Who won it? Do you think?
Bruce Hornsby.
Yeah, Bruce Hornsby won it for best.
Of course they did.
Which was rightful.
Their music composition is ridiculous. Highly underrated band to me.
Yep. So yeah, they did. So they have that. They have that on their belt, at least, that they were nominated for Best New Artist. It's very interesting if you go look at the Best New Artist nominees, and how many of those folks never went on to do anything, and some of them did. And some of the ones that actually are way bigger now that didn't win is also interesting. One that comes to mind is Taylor Swift. She was nominated. Of course, she lost to who was it? Amy Winehouse that year.
Oh, really?
So
I thought maybe Kanye jumped in there, gave it to Beyonce. I don't know how up you are on your.
Ouch. Sorry, Taylor Swift, if you're listening to this. The song was, again, wildly popular in hit movies like DOA starring Dennis Quaid. I'm kidding. That movie's not good. I think it came out in 88. They did Saturday Night Live. I've got a picture here. That's one of the cards, the title cards in between commercials for them when they performed the song live on Saturday Night Live, which they did have a full band, so there was no boombox. Although that would have been hilarious had they just click, and then started the song.
But was it just the SNL band like backing them up?
I don't know.
They're like the that lead guy from their band just grabs their tape and says, "Look, guys, let's listen to this. Just play this crap for them."
What was his name at the time? The '80s guy. He had the long ponytail.
I do not remember.
Blonde-haired guy. I forget his name now. It was featured in Tommy Boy, I think, during the peeing scene where he had a pee. And then the one that I always remembered was Head of the Class, and I was convinced for the longest time that this song was the intro to Head of the Class, and it's because I'm getting my wires crossed, and it turns out it's not. The Head of the Class starts off with a famous piece, and I don't remember which famous piece of classical music, and then it goes into this like more modern 80s modern type music about halfway through the introduction.
I think it's called The Arcadian Shepherds.
Oh, that's it. Thank you for that. And so I was really distraught. I'm like, okay, I swear I know this song was in the show because I used to love Head of the Class. And it turns out it's actually in an episode of Head of the Class where the group, and at some point we need to do a Head of the Class. Like it's never been mentioned in Ready Player One or Ready Player Two. I'd love to break this down, but we won't do it tonight. But in there, the students make a music video, and the music video is this song. They set their music video to the song, and it's the song to its entirety from beginning to end. And it's really, really cheesy, as you would expect, right, from a TV show in 1980s where you've got a bunch of kids trying to do an MTV movie or MTV video production type quality. It doesn't really match up, and they're all playing multiple parts and stuff. So it's, if you're interested, go YouTube it. It's out there. But again, it is the whole full song, and it was right at the height of this song as well. So it just kind of went well with them. So again, they were really on the cusp of breaking out, and it's why they were nominated for Best New Artist. Unfortunately, they ended up releasing just a total of, I think, what was it? It wasn't very many albums. I don't know if I even have it here in my notes. But they are still to this day classified as a one-hit wonder, which I don't know if it's fair. I guess they are. I mean, I can't think of. It's hard. Yeah, it's hard to say they don't have anything else out.
If they aren't, then who is? I mean, my opinion is, I'm one. We were actually over the holidays watching this YouTube video called like 100 one-hit wonders, and some of the bands that were on there, I'm like, no, for like Counting Crows is on there, and I'm like, dude,
what?
Just because,
no,
just because, dude, there's no way like I can name 10 Counting Crows songs without trying.
Yeah, but, I mean, they even had. I mean, this is not their. I mean, it's a great song, but like "Accidentally in Love" was on Shrek. I mean, that was huge when it came out. All right, so and that's just the tip of it. They've got more. So, but we won't get into the defense of Counting Crows on here. But they, so yeah, I was sorry, I did have it in my notes. 7 albums between 1986 and 1995. They unceremoniously just went out of business, like stopped making music altogether. I think they've separated since then as well, and I think the lady,
you've got to be you got to be a pretty bad band if you went out of business. I've never heard that for a band. Like, we filed for bankruptcy. We're that terrible. They came and repoed our boombox.
We're liquidating our assets as we speak.
Everything must go.
Starting with the boombox, yeah.
And ending with the boombox. That's all we have. We're going to sell this dude's harmonica. So here's what's interesting about this, as you were putting up, like, hey, this is what it's known for. These four. I actually have way more memories of this song because it seemed to be really popular in movies, right? So this song was featured in Dream a Little Dream with Corey Feldman.
The Coreys, yeah.
Yeah, the Coreys is in there. It was in Cuffs, Christian Slater. I remember it in that film.
Don't remember that film.
Come on.
I'm assuming he played a cop.
Yes, and he did the eyebrow thing. He nodded his head when he talked.
And
Jack. Like, his bangs were all in his face when he was doing it. He was talking like this the whole time. You guy, it's like halfway between Jack Nicholson and the Joker. I don't know what he's doing, but man, I thought he was the coolest dude. That was the dude I wish I was in the 80s.
Christian Slater?
Yeah, dude, I love Christian Slater, dude. That dude's awesome.
Huh.
Anyway, the movie that I remember it most from, and most people don't even remember this film, is the 1987 classic Campus Man. Have you ever seen this movie, Albert?
Oh my goodness, no.
All right, so it's about this college student who's going to school for like a marketing degree. It actually takes place at Arizona State University. He doesn't have enough money to pay for college. He comes up with this brilliant idea that he is going to take pictures of the student athletes, the male student athletes, and then market them to women. He needs money to do so, so he borrows it from a loan shark. and he's got to sell these calendars in order to make enough money to pay back the loan shark and pay for his tuition. It is the most 80s movie you can see that isn't popular. It has got a resounding 4.8 on Rotten Tomatoes.
I'm looking this up now. I've never heard of this.
You got to watch it.
Who's in it?
Nobody. It's like one of those B-80s movies that, you can't really remember the cast, but everybody looks slightly familiar. I'm surprised you haven't seen it because there's a lot of dudes in Speedos in this thing, and that was your thing for like 4 episodes.
People are going to take that out of context.
Highly recommend. Or maybe they'll take it in context. Who cares?
Who cares?
It's a brave new world, sir.
Huh. Yeah, I don't know. I don't recognize. Oh, it's got Morgan Fairchild. She's the only one I recognize, and that's only because of the Gap commercials.
Excellent.
Oh, she's from Dallas, Texas. All right.
Well, there you go.
Okay. Well, that's head of the class. No, I'm sorry. That's Timbuktu.
That's Timbuktu.
Future so bright. Gotta wear shades. All right. Dust in the Wind. I'll give the quote. You can take it away. All 3 of them had been cremated. My Aunt Alice at the time of her death, my parents after the fact, courtesy of the city's free cremation and remains recycling program. Now all they were was dust in the wind. This is one that it's a common phrase, and I know you're going to get into the phrase itself and kind of the euphemism and all that. But where is this? Like, are we stretching here, or do you think he was really aiming for this song?
Oh no, absolutely. He was aiming for this song.
Okay,
right.
I'm in agreement.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So Kansas. I don't know where Albert found the photo that's currently being shown.
I did a Google search for Andre the Giant, and this is what came up.
That's exactly what it looks like. You've got like the band's composed of Charles Manson, Andre the Giant, maybe
Rob Zombie.
I don't know. All right, so let's give it. So shockingly, the band Kansas is from Topeka, Kansas. Right, they formed in 1970. Steve Walsh, who's lead vocals, Kerry Livgren, acoustic guitar, Rich Williams, also on acoustic guitar, Robbie Sternhardt and violin, viola, and backup and harmony vocals, and Phil Ehart on hand drums. Right?
And by the way, if you're looking at the picture, feel free to place those names anywhere you'd like. It does not matter at this point. You can name them however you would like to.
Yeah, the guy with the bow tie, I think that's the main dude, but I can't be sure. Honestly, if I was in a band like this, I want to be hand drums. Like if I could pick, first of all, I think bands this big are a problem. Like, even though like Old Chicago, who I love, like I like Old Chicago better than Peter Cetera, which I also like, but man, Old Chicago music is amazing. I think we've talked about this before. I don't believe that there's any bad band that has a horn section. If you have a horn section and it's in the 70s, man, you guys are going to be solid. Not that Kansas has a horn section. They have hand drums though, so they got that going for them. So when Kansas first started playing, they were playing at bars, but they refused to do covers. They were like, dude, we're only doing our own music. But bar owners were like, dude, no way. The people are here to not hear your music. We want to hear freaking modern music. So they would lie and play their own music and claim that they were new songs by the Allman Brothers.
That's pretty ingenious, yeah.
Yeah, that's well done. Back then, you could get away with it, right?
Right, where are you going to go look?
Yeah.
You're not going to verify that anywhere.
Yeah, we had this conversation. We were talking about it with the kids the other day about how it's difficult for, I think, young kids to realize just how disconnected we were from the rest of the world. And how disconnected we were, kind of like when we were talking about Temple of Doom, right? If I saw that and that was what India was, that's what India was.
Right.
I had no other mechanism to get a point of reference. There was nowhere near, even though both of you and I went to schools that were dominated by minorities. I can't remember in elementary school or even middle school us having anyone of Middle Eastern descent. I mean, it was it. It was just Mexicans, African Americans, and a couple of Asian people and random white people. But, those were in our schools, the schools that we graduated from. At no point would anyone have ever said the whites are the majority at the school.
Right.
they are not.
Yeah, but like you said, you couldn't verify anything. There was no, you had to go to a library and you had to get a library card and you had to get microfiche out, and it's just like it was like not even worth the effort. Just like, okay, fine, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, and every house had like the leather-bound Encyclopedia Britannicas, right? Or the World Book encyclopedias. That's what we had, right?
Yeah.
The one with the green binding. But people only bought those once. So ours were like it was like passed on from generation to generation. So like if you went and looked up
There are
like
5 planets in the universe,
yeah,
in our galaxy.
you're looking up like things about lunar facts, and it's like the moon is made of cheese.
Jeez.
And one day we may visit it.
Yep.
If we can ever get past the glass sphere that encases our planet. Like there's just a bunch of random useless facts. So if you were researching something from like 1700, you weren't going to get any accurate information out of those things. I've actually considered buying a set just so I could amuse myself by just reading all of those entries.
Right.
Crazy.
This is like the home remedy stuff that you always talk about. Have a headache, rub a pickle on your forehead.
That's right. You're going to be fine. So Kansas is playing at bars. Don Kirshner, who was a huge record producer, heard about him and sent one of his talent scouts, Wally Gold, to go out and hear him play because they didn't know anything about him other than listening to their demo tape. So they happened to find out that this dude's coming to one of their gigs. So they advertised for a week that they're offering free beer at this concert that they're at this gig they're going to be doing at this bar, and just thousands of people show up. And so Wally Gold doesn't even get in. He's just like, Jesus, if there's this many people here to listen to these cats, we're going to sign them right away. So even though they're called Kansas, they recorded almost nothing in Kansas. All of their music was recorded in Nashville, right, Tennessee. Their big 4 songs are Carry On, Wayward Son, Dust in the Wind, Point of No Return, and All I Wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Albert, are any of those 4 songs on a playlist you currently have, like on your phone or in your car?
I've got one of them is Carry On My Wayward Son. Dust in the Wind I actually really like, but it's nothing I like jam out to, right? It's a very well crafted song, and but beyond that I don't listen to it. But Carry On Wayward Son, that is in, I don't know what I think I call it like 70s rock, although it's got some 80s in there. But it's got like these guys, it's got Boston, it's got Styx, it's got some Queen in there, a lot of Kiss, some Rush, obviously. But yeah, it's kind of in that era, because it does rock. Those 2 songs stick out for me too, much like Flock of Seagulls, Ran, were all in Guitar Hero as well. And so that's where I really learned to appreciate the songs, because of the way, just how they were crafted and how complex they can be at times. But then you start to appreciate it. Even though I'm on a plastic toy guitar, those songs are freaking hard to play. You really get a sense of, wow, these things were, I've always overlooked it or underappreciated just how well they've been created. But yeah, I mean, these guys they've got some. I don't recognize the other one though. All I Wanted. What was that? Was that a ballad?
I have no idea, sir.
Okay,
just reporting the facts, sir. Hey, it's funny you mentioned that because I hadn't thought about it either on Flock of Seagulls. But when we were kind of talking about where their music had appeared, I remember it was the first track that played in Grand Theft Auto Vice City.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yep.
Vice City was, for that generation, my favorite game by a mile. And the music was incredibly immersive. And what they did with like the DJs and the commercials, brilliantly done. To this day, I play that game. So I still have it on my phone. I actually have the Vice City soundtrack. It was like, I think it was 6 volumes, 6 or 7, one for each of the radio stations, that has all of the voiceover work on it. If you get the chance, go out, download it, or purchase it in hard media. So Kansas, getting back to them.
It was a ballad, by the way. It was. I'm listening to it right now. All I Wanted was a ballad.
Well, there you go. So
you remember this one. Sorry to go down. Sorry.
Yeah. So back in the bars, they were originally called Kansas. Then they were called White Clover, and then they went back to Kansas again. What's interesting about that is Huey Lewis's first band after he left his post-blues era was actually Clover. So a little White Clover connection there. So, and this band like stuck together without issues, man. These guys were, born again Christian types. They weren't the heavy metal rockers that we were used to seeing in the 70s. In fact, VH1 interviewed the band for Behind the Music in the late 80s, early 90s. They never actually produced it because nothing interesting had ever happened backstage with the band. There's no fights. There was no breakup. They couldn't do the tagline, but meanwhile, things were not the same backstage. They couldn't do that part of it.
Right.
They did split up in 84. but only for a short period. They got back together in '85 and stayed together all the way until they retired in 2014. So great history with the band Kansas. Let's talk a little Billboard Top 25 of 1977 because I love this song. I love Dust in the Wind. It is, to me, probably one of the most poetic lyrically songs ever written. Like I put it at that high of praise in terms of its musicality. It's great.
Yeah.
But it did not chart for the end of the year or in that year in the top 25 songs of 1977, which is
Really?
crazy.
That's fascinating.
So look
This is
at
the
this.
list you've got here. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
looking at
and
this.
I want which songs on this list are better, or what's the worst song on this list that shouldn't be here instead of Dust in the Wind?
Let's see. I mean, there's some pretty big names on here. I'm not gonna lie.
Screen that. I can't even see that. Like,
oh, you can't. Let me put a focus on this. So you can. That may not help though.
oh yeah, it did.
Wait, before we go, Franny Govia says, fantastic band, way more proggy than their few hits suggest. I would agree. And you get that when you listen like to their whole catalog. Man, I'm looking at this. So you've got, for anybody that's listening on to the podcast, there's like Andy Gibb, Shadow Dancing, Bee Gees, Night Fever, Debbie Boone, You Light Up My Life. That was a huge hit.
Yeah, I can buy that.
Right.
Yeah.
Staying Alive, Bee Gees, a lot of Bee Gees on here. How Deep Is Your Love? Oh, it was 77. Yeah, so this is right after.
Yeah, this is all
Saturday
Night Fever. Yeah. And then, like, I don't disagree with that. Like, I love Player, Baby Come Back. That's like a great song. But is that song better than Dust in the Wind? Heck, no, it's a great song.
Yeah, it's a great song, but artistically, no, this is like way better.
Yeah, Taste of Honey's Boogie Oogie Oogie. Come on, bro. That song is not better than Dust in the Wind. Like Commodore's three times a lady. I dig that. I can stand behind that. Paul Davis, I go crazy. I can stand behind that. But there are songs as you move further down. And Guilty Pleasure for me is Chuck Mangione, but I think we've covered that before. Feels So Good is like one of my favorite horn songs. My brother, as you know, was a trumpeter, and
right.
he almost killed this song for me because growing up while he was practicing, to anyone who's ever been related or had a sibling that was in the band know exactly what I'm talking about. You're going to hear the first 7 measures of a song 850,000 times. It was just ground. And what's funny is now that we're older, my brother doesn't play anymore. I miss that. So when I hear this song come on, it just immediately takes me back to sitting in the room, banging on the wall, telling him to shut the hell up.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, there are some great songs on here, but man, like I said, this isn't a song that I just slap in and like jam out to, but you really appreciate like the vocals, the violin, the acoustic guitar throughout. I mean, it's just like a perfect song end to end. I mean, it's arguably one of their biggest songs.
Yeah, so what's funny is it's almost like if you were to go back and look at the Billboard Top 25 for any given year, and I actually started doing this after this informal research after we were doing this, is I started looking at the top 25 hits of every year starting at like 1955, and then but watching the music videos, which is awesome. There's just a YouTube channel that does it where they're like top 30 songs of each year, and you can just watch them chronologically. And it's funny, if you had to go back and re-rank those in terms of how well they stood up, I mean, if you look like Queen's all the way down at number 25, that's definitely has more staying power than most of the songs that are on this list.
Yeah.
Dust in the Wind's the same way. You would almost have to go back and reorder them and say, who's still relevant? Who stood the test of time? And to me, Kansas certainly did that. This song was written by Kerry Livgren for the 1977 album, Point of No Return. And originally he wrote it as a finger picking exercise, which is interesting because when I learned to play the guitar, which is terrible, I'm terrible at playing the guitar, but I do like finger picking. And so it's almost, you have to train yourself to learn that style of guitar. So it was just a finger picking exercise. And if you go to the next slide, it kind of goes into the background of what we were talking about. And that's what the song means.
Yeah, this is, you were talking about music videos, and I remember this is one of the music videos I do remember because it had like Hagrid. Hagrid is in the background. He looks kind of normal in terms of how he's dressed, although he does have the big beard and hair. But then you got a guy wearing like a ruffled shirt, kind of like in a, I don't know.
Yeah,
He
he's
almost
got
like a Danny Terrio kind of
he's
dance
got
outfit.
the Jerry Seinfeld freaking
Yes, yes.
shirt.
Yeah, and then you got another guy in a full tuxedo, like a 70s tux with a bow tie. And then the other
Mhm.
guy is dressed like a druid. He's got like a cloak on or something. It's like, it's so out of the place, but it's just so, I don't know. It's very bizarre, I guess, or
Really
surreal in
all
terms
right.
of when you hear the song and you see these guys in their outfits. What were you going to say?
You really are a great wizard, Harry.
Yeah. You've got Hagrid in there. You've got Legolas in there.
A th at the end of Hagrid.
Did I? Hagrid?
Like that.
Hagrid?
Yeah. It was like almost like you were Welsh or you're speaking Elven.
Hagrid. I think I was going for the Elvish. You got anything else on it? Oh, you still got more on it? My goodness.
Dude,
Okay,
of
what is
course
all
we haven't
this?
talked about the song lyrics,
Oh,
right?
my Lord. Okay, go
So
ahead.
most people think that it's a biblical reference that paraphrases Ecclesiastes and Genesis. And in those two chapters, really ponder the issues of mortality. But the word dust in the Bible only appears in Genesis, right? It's better described, the messaging is about the fragility of man, the fleetingness of success, and the inevitability of death. So it is talking about our mortality, but it's also talking about, you know, the things we hold on to. So, like I talked about earlier, to me, lyrically, this is one of the most poetic songs I believe was written in the 70s. And it's rare to me, but happens occasionally. And I almost blame Kansas because kind of like what, Franny was talking about earlier, they've got a lot of proggy hits in there. But to me, this is what started that trend of having a rock band who may be progressive, may have that kind of music, drop a ballad. And now, throughout the 80s, that turned into a really common thing to see. So when you hear a song like this, what other deep, meaningful ballads come to mind that remind you of that type of song, like that ballad that's dropped in a rock album or a prog album?
Oh, can it be, does it have to be of this genre or like this time frame?
No, no, no. It can be
Oh,
anything.
how about Porno Graffiti's, off Porno Graffiti's, what was that, oh, dang it, 1992, 91, 92. What's the band I'm thinking of, man? It was, we had it, we
Def
listened to,
Leppard?
no, it wasn't, it wasn't Def Leppard. It
Oh,
was,
you're thinking, yeah, I
uh,
know who I'm sorry, dude. I don't know
More
why
Than
my brain.
Words.
Yeah,
More Than Words by Extreme from the Porno Graffiti album. So I
yeah.
got the album, I just couldn't remember the freaking it. So that one is one that comes to mind. I don't know if it's in the ballpark of what you're thinking, but that is a
Yeah,
far cry from what they did. And artistically, I think it's a great song.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's a safe bet. That song's very much, it's an on the nose kind of love song, but it was very well written. So I'm going to give it a thumbs up that qualifies. When I think of music like that from that era, I think of like White Lions, When the Children Cry. To me, that was
Right.
like, because the lyrics are amazing. Like if you
Yeah.
just take the lyrics by themselves, it is a song about it. It's nothing like what they're doing.
On
I
the rest of
mean,
the album.
yeah, where they're just, you're waiting. Just
Wait.
keeps telling me to wait.
Wait.
I'm waiting. All right. So the funny thing is that Dust in the Wind is universal in its application, right? So similar axioms to Dust in the Wind can be found in literature in Japan as far back as 1330. Like the Tale of the Heike includes a description of people being mortal, like dust in the wind. Within that, Native American poetry, as far back as the 1700s, used the phrasing dust in the wind to, again, just describe the pacificity of man. So it's not like that metaphor was something
Exclusive to
that just came up.
Christianity.
So Carrie had been asked, the writer of the song, Carrie was asked how he came up with the song lyrics, right? Like, what was the inspiration for the song? And he said that he was reading that particular book, songs from the
From This Earth on Turtle's Back.
Yeah, he was reading that book, and that is a collection of poetry, Native American poetry, including some of that old 1700s. And that's where he got the inspiration from it. But as soon as Carrie played it, where he played it at a rehearsal one time, Steve from the band knew it was going to be a hit as soon as he heard it. And he's always credited it by saying, this song is a hit because it's not formulaic, right? It's just a great song. It's a timeless song. It can't be married to a particular genre. And even though they were just coming off their hit, Carry On My Wayward Son, right, when they released this song, it was like we talked about, clear departure from the usual sound, which is crazy. This song was a crossover hit, and those are rare. Even going through the 80s, 90s, where you have a song like this that charted on country, rock, contemporary, pop, and Christian charts.
Yeah.
It charted in all of them, right? And I think you'd be hard pressed to find a song that's charted in that many different genres.
It was probably more common in the 70s, because the 70s is real. It's a very it's like a melting pot of a lot of different songs. It's a really in my opinion, it's a very transitional phase for music. And then when you get to the 80s, because of MTV and synth and electronic devices and all that, it really starts to change a lot more, and people start kind of breaking into their lanes. But you look at the pop charts, it's always amazing. Even in the early 80s, you look at the pop charts all throughout the 70s, it is a very vast, it runs the full spectrum of the top 40 hits. You've got, like you said, country music in there, there's Christian music, you've got rock bands in there. It was just a songwriters, like singer-songwriters in there as well. They're all, in the top 40s. And now you look at charts in the 80s, right? And then it starts getting very specific. They had to break them up into Billboard's top 100 pop, rap. And now it's, you've got very siloed. I don't think we would ever have a song that would be able to transcend music genres like that again. Country is probably the closest that you're going to find that can get into like the pop, have a country aspect to it, maybe break into like the Christian area, if you will, but it's so hard to find songs like that.
Yeah, the ones that come to mind, and you're right. You're absolutely right, because when I think about songs that immediately come to mind that have done that, Elvis did it a bunch of times, right? Like Elvis has a ton of Grammys, but all of them are on the Christian charts, right? None of them, all his pop music never won a Grammy. He was just too far. He was too far crazy, because he was. It always cracks me up. I wonder what people back then would have thought of, like, listening to Nicki Minaj or something today. They would burn her as a witch. That's probably what would happen.
Well, that's what happened with Two Live Crew in the 80s. Remember that?
Yeah,
late 80s.
I do remember that. It actually made them more popular for us. So this song reached number 6 in the U.S. It was Kansas's only top 10 and only certified as gold. But it charted in the top 100 in virtually every country in the world. That's it. That's all I got. If you're DJing, this song is 93 beats a minute. So,
well, there you go.
Get ready to mix it. Put it in your next industrial mix. Speaking of industrial mixes, what are we talking about next, Albert?
I want to call out. Franny had Kiss and Beth. That's a great one too. Far departure from what they were doing. Peter Criss on vocals. That song, arguably along with I Was Made for Loving You, were two songs that really polarized the Kiss community at the time, because it was just like they're so far, they're departures from like what they were doing.
Well, technically, I thought Beth wasn't a Kiss song originally. I thought it was when they did their solos, right? When they did their solo albums.
No, it's on Destroyer, I think.
Oh yeah,
Randy or somebody keep me honest. I think it's on the Destroyer album, which was like, it would have been around 70, maybe 77.
Yeah, it was on Destroyer. You are correct, sir.
Was it?
Yep.
I had the double platinum album when I was like 5 years old. I was huge into Kiss and the cartoon and the Carnival Ride.
And the Carnival movie.
Yeah. Yep.
Nice.
Anyways, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, that and I Was Made for Loving You, which was their disco entry, sent everybody over the wall or over the edge. Okay, but that's and oh my goodness, you still got more here.
No, I don't. You stop this. That's not true.
It was in all these movies.
All these movies have Dust in the Wind in it. That's all I was going to tell you.
Okay.
And then, of course, it was famously said in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yeah. Oh, we are. It's
so
Dust
great.
in the Wind, dude. So great. Final Destination 5, Lucifer, Old School, Unrated, the Highlander series.
The series, sir.
You dug that one out. Freaks and Geeks.
Season 2.
Okay, thank you. 2. For anybody wondering. Desperate Housewives, Family Guy, The Symptoms. Simpsons. What song hasn't been in The Symptoms? Okay. Let's talk about Joan Jett. And she probably deserves way more time than we're going to give her credit for. And I know, I want to say she is a huge favorite of Ernie Klein's wife. It was one of the movies, one of the premieres, and I forget if it was Ready Player One or he was doing he got up in front of another movie at the time. I really don't remember now, but he got up there. It was here in Austin, and he was talking about one of the songs and stuff, and somehow it came up that this was one of his wife's favorite artists. So, and there's a reason why I'm mentioning that up front. But let me give the quote. She said it was talking about Samantha. She also used her newfound fame and wealth to champion a whole lot of environmental and humanitarian causes around the world. And seemingly overnight, she transformed herself into a sort of rock star, philanthropist, and humanitarian. She was like Oprah, Joan Jett, and Mother Teresa all rolled into one. So we did cover Mother Teresa and we did cover Oprah in the last episode, but we're going to get into Joan Jett just now. So Joan Jett was born Joan Marie Larkin on September 22nd, 1958. She's 62 years old and she's still playing. I got a chance to look at some of her more recent performances. She's still rocking, dude. Like she can still do it all. She's like the real deal. And I think what a lot of people don't really know is this little band here, which is a great band. This is the Runaways. They started back in 1979, really early in the like mid 70s or whatever, or 76 is when they started. And a lot of people know the song Cherry Bomb that these girls did because Cherry Bomb is a song that plays in Guardians of the Galaxy. It's on the soundtrack when they released the Awesome Mix, like the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack, Awesome Mix Volume 1 or whatever on the tape. This is one of the songs that you got with it. But this band had, you can see Joan Jett right there. It also had Lita Ford in there, who went on to do her solo career, and then she did some collaboration stuff with like Ozzy Osbourne and all that, like in the early to mid 80s when she got into rock and roll. But yeah, this is kind of where they all started. This band eventually broke up, and she went solo in 1979. And from there, she became Joan Jett. She did her first album as Joan Jett. She ended up getting a band, called it Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, and that's where, I think a lot of people probably know that name. And where she's, the music that she's done. She's got a lot of albums. It's surprising, though, that she doesn't have a lot of, like, number one songs. So her biggest album by far is the one you see here on the right, I Love Rock and Roll. That produced a ton of songs in there. But she's got, Do You Want to Touch Me? Oh, yeah, that's a pretty big song. Crimson and Clover, kind of like slower ballad. She cut her teeth on lots and lots of cover songs. In fact, a lot of her first albums were really just cover songs with heavy rock riffs in them that she was performing herself in her band. And it's so funny because you in interviews when they're talking about this, she went through a period of time where she was getting a lot of feedback from people saying, all you're doing is cover albums. We want original music. And so she would do more original music. And then she would hear from the other side of the group saying, why are you doing original music? Where are all the cover songs? And she's like, I couldn't win early on when she was putting these albums out because she was never able to satisfy and appease everybody that like she wanted to. I Hate Myself for Loving You. That's the one that came out in 1988. Pretty big song. That was the one that appears at the end of Ready Player One, the movie, or appears in the song, in the movie, I should say. And that was that's where Ernie had made the comment that he put that song in there because of his wife's love for that song in particular, or Joan Jett. And then obviously her biggest song is I Love Rock and Roll, which came out in 1981. That is by far probably my favorite song from her. It's probably everybody's favorite song. But there's some interesting, I mean, she's got a lot of albums here, like I said, but really not a whole lot of number ones. And a lot of her songs are truly cover songs, but albeit they're really good cover songs. Heavy guitar. She's known as the queen of rock and roll, the godmother of punk, and the original Riot Girl. So she's always had this like really edgy kind of, rock hard kind of styled and look and all that. So I wanted to talk about, though, the I Love Rock and Roll. This is the music video. Have you ever seen the music video for this?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot to it. It's, like I said, we were talking about this in early 80s. A lot of these music videos was somebody just said, oh, why don't you go stand over there, do the lines, do the lyrics or whatever to the songs, and we'll move the camera around, throw some people in the background and call it a day. We'll mix it, make it look kind of fun by putting special effects on it and everything else. But essentially that's exactly what happened here. The music video really isn't much to talk about. But I want to talk about these guys. So these are the Arrows. And the Arrows were a 1976 band that came out in the UK. And they released a couple songs. They didn't have an album out yet. They were just releasing individual singles. They got the attention of a producer at the time there in the UK. And this producer came to them and said, look, you guys have these great songs. What do you guys think about doing a TV show? And this is unprecedented, right? Because no one had ever had a TV show prior to even releasing an album. And so the way the show was supposed to work is they would bring these guys out called the Arrows, and the Arrows could create their own music and they could play their own music. But the gist of the show was it was almost like a TV talk show. So they would bring another guest out, kind of interview them for a little bit, and then that musical guest would go out and play a song. Well, so they had actually released a song called "I Love Rock and Roll," and they performed this song on like one of the very first episodes of this show. And Joan Jett was actually on tour with the Runaways in the UK when she turned on the TV and saw this song being performed. She loved it so much that she wanted to do a cover song of it. So she did release the cover song back in like 1979, but it wasn't until it was included on the 1981 album, I Love Rock and Roll, that it really just kind of blew up and took off. So a lot of people know, I guess where I'm going with the story is a lot of people know that Joan Jett's biggest song, most famous song, the song they love the most is I Love Rock and Roll, but most people don't know that she didn't actually write that. It actually came from this three-piece boy band, if you will, called the Arrows from 1976. And if you go, you can go online, YouTube or wherever, and listen to the original song. It's very, very similar to what you hear with Joan Jett. It's obviously produced better, and arguably the rock and roll, the guitars are a lot better, but it is very much the exact same song that came out, 5 years prior to when she released it. So pretty cool. Let's talk about these guys. We're still talking about Joan Jett.
How are we? Because we're going to talk about Big Daddy Kane.
We got a picture of a band called Metal Church, which I only knew one person that listened to Metal Church growing up in the 80s. And it was always that kid. He was always like in the back. He always scribbling on his folder, drawing the Judas Priest logo or drawing the Iron Maiden, Eddie or something. And it was always Metal Church and upside down crosses. And just kind of stayed away from him,
Hey, so I actually work with one of those guys. So I work with that guy, the guy that had the jean jacket with the sleeves cut off of it and the patches on the back.
Patches, yeah.
Yeah, the Injustice for All giant patch on the back.
Kill 'em all patch on the back.
Oh, yeah, it's the Kill 'em all patch. And maybe like in the front, maybe he was rocking like, King Diamond or whatever. Like all these bands I never listened to.
Yep. So you work with him still? Like he dresses like that today?
No, of course not. Of course not. But I find it funny that, we went to high school with him. I'm not going to mention his name, but we went to high school. We graduated together, but we were in such different circles. I didn't know him. He didn't know me. Like, and to me, it's a bit surreal until like he tells me what he was doing. I'm like, oh, you were the guy behind Fred's Fish Fry. Like, that's you. Like, while I was in play rehearsal, you were doing that.
Yeah, you were toking it up back there and smoking cigarettes and making deals.
Being cool.
Yeah, you'll have to share me his name.
No, sure. I'm not going to. He would not appreciate that.
All right, you don't do that. So the reason we're talking about Metal Church, man, but they look really old in that picture. You probably can't see it there. I guess they are pretty old since they were. And then Big Daddy Kane, which I know you're a huge fan of.
I am.
But so Joan Jett is she's done a lot of things. She was an actress. I think in total she had 12 studio albums. She had she was in like 15 movies and TV shows. I mean, she's done just about everything you can do in a 62-year-old career. But one of the things she does have is a record label, and it's called Blackheart Records, which is what you see there, the logo there. And two of the bands that she has on her record label were Metal Church, which again in that genre of music were pretty, prolific, I guess, during the 80s. And then Big Daddy Kane, who had his run. What, early 90s, maybe mid 90s? I'm trying to think when he was kind of like at his apex of his career, but
I would say that was late 80s for sure.
Late 80s, yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, she's got and there are other albums or other bands and everything that she's signed on here as well. But yeah, so interesting fact that she had her own little record label there as well.
Nice.
Okay, I'm going to talk about Depeche Mode, and then we'll close with Wakanda Forever, which I don't know. This one may take a while because we got a lot of memories here. The quote for Depeche Mode is, "We lost our virginity to each other 3 days after the first kiss. Then we spent the rest of that week sneaking off to make the beast with two hairy backs at every opportunity."
Why did you read the whole quote? Like, why, dude? Come on.
Know. It's just funny.
Dude, I cannot. No, it's not.
All right.
It's terrible.
I'll edit that out of the podcast. No, I'm kidding. It says, like Depeche Mode, we just couldn't get enough.
Oh, God.
Okay. So Here is Depeche Mode. They're a band started in 1980. You've got Dave on lead vocals, Martin on keyboards, guitars, lead, backing vocals, Andy Fletcher on bass guitar, Alan Wilder on piano and drums, and they all do vocals. Like all of them sing every song. It's kind of one of their things, especially when we talk about like back end vocals and stuff. So their name originally literally translates into hurried fashion or fashion dispatch, which Martin Gore read and he immediately liked when he saw that. So they just kind of ran with it. There's really not a whole lot of science or anything more interesting outside of that. They've got a lot of albums. I think, how many were there? Let's see. We've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 albums, I think, in total, studio albums. Tons and tons of singles.
And some lives, right? There's some lives out there, too. There's some live cut imports also.
These guys were, and their music was it was really targeted a lot at the dance charts, and there was a lot of, the retro wave dance music and stuff like The Cure and those bands. That's really where they started, and they really kind of started hitting mainstream probably in the late 80s with Violator, and then Songs of Sadness and Devotion comes out a little bit later after that, but that's kind of where they really started becoming much more mainstream. Maybe even music for the masses, right? People Are People, I think, is probably one that really kind of broke them out as well. But let's talk about, before we get into the other songs, the song that's mentioned in the book is Just Can't Get Enough. It was the third single off the album Speak and Spell, which is their first album. So I've got a picture in the bottom left-hand corner of Speak and Spell. That is the next picture over here is the cover for the single Just Can't Get Enough. And this song came out just before the album was released. So they'd already released two singles separately. This song came out as a third single, then the album came out and just kind of skyrocketed them at that point. That song actually made it all the way to number 8 in the UK, only got to number 26 in the US Billboard charts. And that was only on the Hot Dance Billboard chart. So it actually never even broke into the top 100 for as popular as that song is now. I've got a picture here of the video. This is him performing. I've seen GIFs of these things and memes everywhere, and it's just a very interesting video that they did. It's not the official video they did for Just Can't Get Enough. But so Will, when you're looking at all these albums, and I think I've got a kind of a little collage here of all the different albums. I mean, these, and we talked about this. I think we teased this probably in the last, when we were doing that Ready Player One, that if we ever get to Depeche Mode, and we just recently talked about it too. I know you and I have a lot of personal history with this band. I think you and I probably share a lot of the same memories of when we first heard certain albums or even certain songs, because we were probably together when it happened. But where does Depeche Mode sit with you? And like, what are your earliest memories of hearing them? Was it an album? Was it a song? And kind of what were we doing, or what were you doing at the time?
So I'm going to take the first part of your question. I'd like to take the first part of your question first,
go ahead,
and then take a pause, and then. All right. So first, let's talk about where Depeche Mode ranks in what I'll call the Mount Rushmore of this era of whatever. It's very difficult to classify the genre of this music between alternative, industrial, new wave, because it's a blend within 4 major bands as I see them, right? You have Morrissey and the Smiths as one. You have Depeche Mode. Of course, you have The Cure. And then you have Joy Division / New Order, right? Mm-hmm. So if I were ranking those 4 bands in terms of how I love their music, I'm going to put Joy Division, New Order 1, right? But again, it's not a fair comparison because, Joy Division wasn't around long enough. It's like, right. I think somebody once said, it's like comparing Jimi Hendrix to Eric Clapton, because Depeche Mode has such a huge discography and they stuck around. They're basically the Rolling Stones of this era for this genre of music. So for me, they rank second in that band list, but in terms of total just playlist and memories, and if I had to pick, 3 bands that represent the soundtrack of my life, Pearl Jam would be first, and Depeche Mode would be second for sure. Especially since it was so huge as part of our formative years, right? Yeah. And it was 2 stages, and maybe it's different from you. I think early on, and I'm talking middle school, we would hear some of their upbeat dance tracks at like 8th grade dances and the after school dance. You might hear 1 or 2, But the relationship that I had with Depeche Mode's music in high school, and it's probably very similar to you, I can remember it distinctly. It was Darren and his freaking crap green Nova, right? And he had 6 tapes in his tape, his little tape organizer, and all of
Hmm.
them were Depeche Mode.
Yeah.
And I absolutely, every memory I have of us doing stuff together is Depeche Mode playing as the soundtrack. Every time we were out when we shouldn't be, every time that we were driving around the city where we shouldn't be, when we were just all together, like, I don't know, like some show after party that we were doing, it was always Depeche Mode. It is, and I think that portion of our lives, Depeche Mode took on a different meaning than it did when, like, we were in middle school. Middle school was fun, and that's what we're listening to. And I think it was almost the type of music that set up the angst that prepared the world for grunge, right? So to me, it's that, almost like we were talking about earlier. It's this transitional music that, it grabs so many different musical influences in their music. And granted, Depeche Mode, especially their early albums, are largely industrial. They went from like this poppy sound to far more industrial heavy sound. And then it got to the point where their music had evolved to the point where it was, not to sound cliche, or it was poetic to me to listen to. So I know at some point we're going to talk about our favorite songs and our favorite albums. But for me, and this is going to be an odd choice for most, um, I would say that their later music, I would say, what is that, 94, Songs of Faith and Devotion, is probably
Hmm.
my favorite album. And it's my favorite album for a couple of reasons. One is because it was disconnected from the other albums that they made that were like sequential, right? It seemed like for a period there, they were releasing a new album like every year or
Yeah.
every 6 months even. And then there was this gap. Both you and I had graduated high school. I didn't see you all the time. I was in the military. I was deployed, and I was in basic training when this album came out, and it was the first tape I bought in the military, and I absolutely love that album. Condemnation's probably one of my favorite songs ever. What's your take on that?
No, I'm with you 100%. Like that was that album. Well, yeah. So just to focus on that album real quick, it is probably my favorite as well. Like I really go back and forth, and the next slide kind of says it because I put these on here. Like these are
Yeah,
very, very close for me.
those are mine too. Like if you were asking me which one do I have the most memories about, Violator for sure, right?
Violator,
I
yeah.
mean, all day I could tell a story about every song on that album. Where for me, the Depeche Mode Songs of Faith and Devotion let me escape back to that time where Violator was big, even though I knew I would never be able to go back because we're growing up and we're young adults and we're being responsible. And that period in high school when we were listening to Depeche Mode, it was probably the freest I ever was in my life, and I'm counting even now, right? It was, you felt like you had no responsibility and that we were just out there. It was a point in your life, and I think everyone experiences at some point where I'm at the point in my life where I believe I can do anything.
Yeah.
I can be anything, and I'm going to live forever. I think
Right.
that's where we were. And Songs of Faith and Devotion took me back to that, even though I had got to a point in my life where I realized that's just not going to be the
Yeah,
case.
I'm with you. I mean you're right because this album, along with like 10 from Pearl Jam, is another
Mhm.
one that was right around that same time era. I would even throw in Verses as well,
Mhm.
but they're all kind of right in that same wheelhouse of, oh yeah, like I'm immortal. Like I can do anything. I can be anything. I have no strings attached to me whatsoever. We both had jobs. We were both getting paid finally. I mean, it was just like the world was our oyster, and kind of made a mess of it. But you know, it was there's a lot of memories that are tied to songs of faith and devotion. And that album is interesting too because I mean he was going through quite a bit when that was going on, and those songs are they're very dark compared to the stuff that you see in Violator. Violator has some darker stuff, but like you said, it's a little bit more industrial. It's got more upbeat songs in it. There's a lot of like gospel that comes into this one as well,
Oh yeah.
lyrically, and through the background vocals as well. But man, it's really hard to pick between these two, and I think it just really depends on the day and what kind of a mood I'm in and what I want to listen to. But it's hard to argue that Condemnation isn't one of their best songs, if not their best songs that they've ever done. Um, so that said, Violator has my all-time favorite song ever of any genre, and I know this is kind of it's almost it's hard to like it for me. It was hard to like come around and really even try to wrap my head around how do you pick a song like your favorite song of all time when you're including every genre of music. It's probably not possible, and it's probably not feasible. But for me, this has always been the song that I've come back to. Uh, Enjoy the Silence, and honestly, the way it picks up right after that when it rolls right into Policy of Truth, like you almost kind of have to listen to those two songs together. But Enjoy the Silence has just been one of the songs that has been my favorite. I can listen to it anytime. I never tire of this song. I never tire of this album, much like Songs of Faith and Devotion. But this was the music video as well. Like it's very simple. I've got some little images here of what's going on in the music video. But I enjoyed the music video a lot too. I don't know why. It's a king walking around with a chair, sitting down, trying to be alone, and enjoy the silence is kind of really what that's about. But yeah, this is still my favorite song of all time, time. Like
that's
beyond any
interesting.
of it. Yep.
So what I find interesting about Depeche Mode for me is that when I look at some of their songs, there are songs that can immediately invoke an emotion. We've talked about it before. What I believe the responsibility of an artist of any discipline is to make the audience emote, whether you're a painter, a writer, a musician. And for me, like Somebody,
Yep.
which was actually a B-side, right?
Yeah.
It was the B-side of Blasphemous Rumors, if you got the single. But that song will immediately depress me. Like if you are going through a breakup, don't listen to that song. that will be the song you kill yourself by. There's no way to get around it. It is one of the most poignant, and just the way he sings it, like you buy it, you believe every word he's saying, and it makes you like, that's how I feel. I'm sad. And I think even someone like me, and you know me well enough to know that there are emotions I'm not comfortable with, and being sad is one of them. But if I am sad, that's the song I retreat to. I retreat to Somebody by Depeche Mode.
So that's funny you say that, because not that I want to turn this into like a psychology or psychiatry type of session, but there was a girl I was really, really in love with in high school, and it didn't happen. And I remember like putting that song on, like torturing myself by putting that song on replay on tape. It wasn't CD, and just listening to it over and over and over again. And I won't say her name because actually I think she follows, or at least she follows the show on Facebook, and I know she sees the posts and stuff. So I won't say it. It's kind of embarrassing, but yeah, I really tormented myself with that song, and that's probably not even, that wasn't the only time. Like that's when like that, and like some of the songs on Songs of Faith and Devotion, like when I really want to just I'm feeling down and I need music. It sounds kind of it doesn't sound intuitive, but whenever I'm feeling down, I actually want to. I gravitate to these types of songs as almost as like a coping mechanism, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's almost like within my music, I have like this. It's not called this, obviously, this playlist, but it's my self-loathing music. And
exactly.
Somebody's on it. Disarmed by Smashing Pumpkins is on it. There's like songs that
Indifference by Pearl Jam.
Indifference. Oh, I love that song. I love Indifference. What else? Everybody Hurts. Like it's all the songs that you don't want by REM. You don't want to listen to all of these in a row. Like you're just going to put your car into a guardrail like, driving down the road.
Yeah. So more on an upbeat, I would say, yeah, I've got a lot of fond memories of this, of Depeche Mode. Like, so you mentioned earlier, like I remember we went out in high school. Do you remember we went out to the Aqueducts?
Of course, yeah.
So we were driving, and we were driving. I don't remember whose car it was. It might have been Darren's. I don't remember whose car it was, but we were driving in someone's car, and they had Black Celebration, Music for the Masses, and I think Violator. I think at the time were out. All three of those were all of these were out obviously before that, but for whatever reason, those three are the ones that stuck with me. And I remember I remember that night vividly because, like you said, those were the songs that were on, and we heard those the entire time. I remember one time in high school, we went to go pick up, again, I was with somebody. I don't know who it was. It might have been Eric. It might have been, or Jeff Klein, maybe. I don't know. We went to go pick somebody up.
Dude, I saw Jeff at an airport in Amarillo like 3 months ago.
Did you?
Yeah, dude, rocking a beard.
So
awesome.
Jeff Klein is a fellow. He went to high school with Will and I. For anybody that, so you're on the inside joke or the inside story.
Yeah. So you know Jeff.
Yeah,
Tell him we
gotcha.
mentioned him.
Yeah,
I'm sure he
right.
appreciates it.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so I went with Jeff somewhere to go pick up a girl that he was interested in, and he had lied to her parents, or she had lied to her parents, and was like, "Oh no, so and so, another girl's coming to pick me up," and I was in the front seat, and we pull up, and
Were you in his Blue Z
yeah, it was
280
a
T top?
280Z. Yep. And he told me to jump
Yeah.
in the back because the dad was coming out or something, and so this is all because at the time, Black Celebration or one of the Depeche Mode songs. No, it was Enjoy the Silence was on. And so I relate that song to that particular moment, which,
Hmm.
there's really no other story. There's not much to the story other than that, but it was just these songs were kind of a soundtrack for a lot of the stuff that we were going through around them. But yeah, I mean, all these are great. I would say Ultra is actually pretty good. I got excited about Exciter, no pun intended there. It wasn't my favorite. There was a couple good tracks on there. And then the other stuff, like since then, I've really tried. Like I really like Depeche Mode, but I have not been able to appreciate all the more recent stuff. I think Spirit was probably the better of the last three, like Playing the Angel, Sounds of the Universe, and Delta Machine. They're, I don't know. I wasn't really digging them, but Spirit was pretty good, and that was in 2017. Since then, for the last 4 years, they've not released anything, though they have not broken up either, so they're still around. They just got inducted into the Hall of Fame 2020. I don't think they've actually done the Hall of Fame because of COVID. They're supposed to do it last year, didn't happen. But they've finally made it in there. So at some point they will get officially inducted. I don't think we mentioned it, but they've had 14 studio albums in total. They've had 11 Billboard Music Award nominations, no wins, and they've had 5 Grammy nominations with no wins, which is shocking for as big as they are.
No, I think that's apropos, right? I
You
mean,
think so?
that is really what to me alternative music was defined as. It was never intended to be mainstream. Like it was decidedly counterculture, right? All of the musicians that we mentioned earlier, those 4 Mount Rushmore to me of this era of music, those are not artists that they're too cool to be in an award show. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. People Are People is the biggest single that they released here in the U.S. And then Personal Jesus got all the way up to 28. And I know that had a lot of heavy airplay on MTV when that video came out as well. They're also known for their concerts and really selling out these massive, massive concerts within seconds and minutes whenever tickets go on sale. So, and that's across the world, as you would expect for some of these bands. So it's just surprising.
They came to San Antonio in 2018, and I could not get tickets. And I'm well connected. Could not get tickets.
Yeah, it's like they're up there with like Pearl Jam. They're elusive for me. I've never been able to get to any one of their shows.
Yeah, the only so I had concert tickets to Pearl Jam to see them in Quebec City, and then COVID happened and they canceled the concert.
I think is that the one you asked me if I want to go?
Yeah. Go up to Canada. It would have been cool, man, because that's a beautiful venue to see a show in, man. I go to Quebec City quite a bit, and it's beautiful. It would have been outstanding. We could have gone to see Eddie Vedder when he was touring solo with his ill-conceived ukulele songs. Who in the world, dude? You need to get some friends. Like, I get that you've been doing this whole like, let's get back to the grassroots kind of stuff, but I don't need you hearing the song from The Jerk being sung by Eddie Vedder. I know that you'll always be. Dude, get out of here with that, dude.
I never dig it myself. There's a big ukulele following, though. I promise you. Okay, you got 7 minutes to wrap up Wakanda.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, here we go. I'm gonna do as fast as I can. I'm gonna do that.
Let me I'll give the quote first because this will take at least 5 minutes. H set up a similar charity in North America called Helen's House, which provided a safe haven for homeless LGBTQIA kids throughout the United States and Canada, along with another foundation devoted to providing impoverished African nations with self-sustaining technology and resources. And for kicks, she called it the Wakanda Outreach Initiative. Take it away, Wakanda.
Hey, well, let me just start by saying I appreciate you putting a quote in here that doesn't have to do with, the two beasts or I appreciate that this was just a normal quote.
Hey, I don't write this stuff, man. Blame Klein. He wrote this.
Next time we talk to him.
I'm getting him on the phone right now. Hold on.
Get him on the line. So, all right, Wakanda. Wakanda and Black Panther were both introduced in 1966, featured in Fantastic Four, number 52. So 2 years later, Black Panther was added to the Avengers, and Wakanda and Black Panther got their first own print in 1977. So interesting. Obviously, not the first Black um, Marvel superhero, but probably the most famous. Another one's coming out, I think, this year or next year. When's Black Adam coming out?
Black Adam.
The Rock's playing him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Isn't Black Adam DC though?
Yeah, well, that's what I meant. Like just any comic book.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I have no idea. Everything's thrown in, everything's off.
Clearly, he doesn't count though, because Black Adam was originally a villain. It was, of course, he was. It was the 50s.
Right. Everybody was.
They didn't know what they were doing. So in fiction, in the fiction of the comic books, Wakanda, long before a giant vibranium asteroid hit Wakanda, it was the home of like 4 mythical races known as the Originators. So if you think that Star Wars people like backstories, dude, these Marvel can create some. I mean, they got backstories that go back centuries upon centuries.
Right.
So anyway, the Originators were basically these groups of snakes called the Simba, these apes called the Vanyan, spiders called the Anansi, and insects that were called Creeping Doom. Apparently, they didn't get a cool name. They were just a Creeping Doom. So these guys were all peaceful, mythical creatures that coexisted. And at some point, ancient men went into Wakanda, and there was limited peace. But eventually, the men went to war and killed all of those other tribes. And then fast forward a couple of centuries, and a giant meteor with vibranium strikes Wakanda. So that meteor, I don't know if you know the backstory of how that all happened, but the first Black Panther, way before Chadwick Boseman, was Bashenga. So Bashenga finds this freaking vibranium, and the radiation of the meteor caused mutations to occur throughout Wakanda, right? And they called them demon spirits. So Bashenga prayed to the gods to give him the strength in order to fight these demons that were created by the vibranium. And that's when they imparted upon men within there that heart-shaped herb. And that heart-shaped herb that they show, that's exactly what it's called in every comic. It has no actual name, just heart-shaped herb. So Bashenga's actually mentioned in the movie. So Shuri's lab is located in Mount Bashenga, which is just a nod to the first Black Panther. So interesting. So one of the cool things about Wakandan history is that no one really agrees on where Wakanda exists. So you have like all these nerds that do all this research, and there's typically 2 prevailing schools of thought of where Wakanda exists, because as you know, Wakanda is protected by a shield, sort of like where Wonder Woman lives, right?
Yeah.
Where it doesn't really, you can't get to it, right? So
camouflages it.
Yeah, they tried to keep their society a secret. And there were a few Black Panther comics that were made in the 80s where they were having these really philosophical debates as to whether or not they should give their technology to help people who were sick and ill. And they made the decision not to help man because, look, these guys smoke and they're drinking and they're killing themselves. Why would we bother helping them? Which I think is a pretty interesting message. So Wakanda was actually invaded once by Colonel Fritz Claw, which is the same character that's
from the movie.
Panther. Yeah, but he's a lot different in the comic books, at least initially. So Colonel Fritz Claw, as you might expect, joined the Nazi Party in 1939, and then claimed that he was going to take over Wakanda for Hitler. That was the actual plot. Didn't happen though. So here's a little fact. Did you know that Wakanda was almost destroyed by Namor, who was channeling the power of Dark Phoenix at the time?
Oh my goodness. They're like crossing all kinds of comic books there.
Crazy crossover where that attempted to happen. In fact, what was it I read? So one of the things what was the name of the alien race in Avengers? Like when they first all got together, the first Avengers movie.
Oh, so not the Skrulls, right?
The Skrulls. No, the Skrulls. So when the Skrulls invaded Earth, it was Wakanda that they attacked first because they thought it was going to be easy to attack, and they were slaughtered, all of them, by all of the Wakanda natives.
Hmm.
It is freaking crazy. And then in the comic book, sent all the corpses back to wherever the scrolls came from in their ship with a warning never to come to Wakanda again.
In Bombay.
What? What'd you say?
Yimbombe. Yimbombe. Remember when they start chanting that at the Avengers? Yimbombe. Isn't that what they say?
I have no idea.
That's like the chant.
I thought they said, "What you want?
What you want? What you say? What you say? That's what
you say. What you say?
Yimbombe. It means hold off. All right. Sorry. It's probably funnier if you know what I'm talking about.
I'm sure somebody actually finds it amusing that I have no idea what you're talking about. So it might be even funnier if no one knows what you're talking about but you, because then you're just ranting gibberish.
Lunatic.
There is an official language of Wakanda, and it's Xhosa, which is the official language of South Africa, one of the official languages of South Africa. And so a couple of the actors actually spoke it, and that's the accent that they used. So when Marvel was making this film, originally they didn't want Chadwick to do an accent at all. And he adopted that accent because the actor that played his father was South African, spoke that language natively, and spoke it in the movie. So now it has been just accepted, even as canon, even in the comics, that is the official language. Pretty interesting.
Yep.
And I didn't get this about the movie, but they give a lot of love to Oakland in the movie. Like there's a lot, the ending scenes in Oakland.
Right.
He had run off to Oakland at one point, so you had all of that. And
Dad was out there.
Do you know why they did that? Why they selected Oakland?
I don't remember it being in the comics, but I can't say that I was a big. I liked Black Panther, but I didn't read a lot of the '70s. I didn't come into Black Panther until probably just years before the movie was announced, or that character was announced and going to be in there. I went and picked up the more recent titles, but I do not know a lot of history on Black Panther.
Yeah, but yet it's not in the comics. They picked it because it's the birthplace of the Black Panther Party.
Oh,
I don't know how we didn't know that, but there you go.
Wow. Okay.
So religion-wise in Wakanda, there's 18 different cults in Wakanda. Each of them worship a different animal in Wakanda. The most famous is White Gorilla Cult.
Yes.
Which is the one that is technically referenced, although they softened it quite a bit for the movie versus the comic because
they were much more brutal, weren't they?
No, it's not just that they're brutal, but they also ate white apes in order to get their power. Right, that was their whole thing. They were powerful because they were eating these mutated freaking giant gorillas.
Chilled monkey brains.
Yes, indeed. So, you know what but they softened it quite a bit. I can't remember what the main character's name is for the White Gorilla Cult or White Gorilla Tribe, I believe, in the movie. I forgot what that character's name is.
Yeah, I don't either.
But they had to soften it because it was Man Ape in the comic. So they didn't want to.
Oh, that's yeah. I know the character.
Yep.
All right. I know he's at one point that character does say Yimbombe.
Well, there you go. I believe you. So I did think that it appropriate while we were talking. I mean, I don't know that we could really talk about Wakanda and talk about Black Panther without talking about Chadwick Boseman for just a bit. And I didn't give you any slides on him, but just an absolutely amazing actor. Amazing actor, writer, director, philanthropist. He has done in the short time, and to put this in perspective, I mean, Chadwick is only 2 years younger than we are. He would have gone to high school with us, and just everything he did from graduating from Brown, becoming a director, for youth, and then all the volunteerism that he did. Some of his plays are brilliant. So if you ever get the opportunity to just go out and do some research on him, his death was more than about its impact on Marvel. I know there's quite a bit of stuff out there where people are talking about what they're going to do with the character, and are they going to shelf the character and not have him return, or how are they going to do it? But there are a million tributes out there for him, especially in his hometown, where they're replacing their only monument, which is a Confederate statue with a statue of him.
Wow.
Which is very, very cool. So hats off to South Carolina for doing that. Yeah, that's all I really wanted to say on that.
Yeah, he's I don't he's one of those actors. Unfortunately, this sounds horrible, but I didn't when he passed, I actually went back and started watching all of his movies, and I immediately regretted, like, why was I not following him before? I've seen he's just an amazing actor, and I don't know if that's partly my fault, partly maybe he wasn't in mainstream until he hit Marvel, and a lot of the stuff he's done is top-notch acting. It's just those movies never got, the promotion that they probably deserved, or he never got the recognition he probably deserved for some of those roles. But
so his two other big movies, right? 42, obviously, where he played Jackie Robinson. He was brilliant in, and then Get On Up, which everybody knows. But he is to me, he's like one of us, but the one like who we were in high school with the guy that followed his dream and did it, right? Like, was a theater guy, went to college for directing, graduated from that, and the majority of his career, he was a live theater actor. Right? He was either acting, writing, directing during that time, and didn't make that hop. He made a quick hop into TV, and I can't remember what show he's on before he started making films. But throughout his entire career, he never lost his love for the theater, which, I can relate to. You just never get away from that. Yeah. That feeling of that. And even before he was diagnosed with cancer in 2016, he was already doing so much for his community. And that only strengthened his resolve to do even more, even though he never, he didn't make it public that he was. Think about this. I mean,
yeah, that's crazy.
His diagnosis was the same year that Black Panther was released, right? Like, and he knew it. He kept it to himself and went through all. It's incredible. I mean, just.
Disney's got a Disney. If you go to Disney Plus, they've got a tribute to him on there, and that's a tearjerker because they've got all the actors from on the sets and talking about how they knew something was going on. He'd walk away, he was sick, come right back, and you couldn't tell. Like, he would jump right into character and just do the character like nothing ever happened. And he had to have been hurting, he had to have been suffering and going through that pain, and wasn't socially active with all of them many of the times because he was out getting treatment or just not feeling up to his normal self. So it's just, absolutely phenomenal that he was able to do that. Like, you would not have, like, most of us, and honestly most of us did not know anything was going on until suddenly you saw in the news that he had passed, and he'd been struggling with this for years, a couple years at least. So
incredible.
Yeah. All right. Well, don't want to end on a sad note, but that's kind of what it is. He's definitely going to be missed. Go check it out. Go check out the other films that he does or he's done if you haven't seen any of those. So, I think that's all we had, right?
That's all we got, sir. We're gonna wrap it up for this one.
2 hours in. Okay, so let me just put Yim Bombay in the chat, so we've got record of that now. It's official.
Yes.
Bombay. What was the other one? What You Say? Let's put that in there.
What You Say?
What You Say? Oh.
Isn't that a song already, though? What You Say? What You Say? It's an R&B song, I think.
What You Say? What You Say? Yeah, I think you're right. Hey, Yim Bombay didn't go through on Twitch. That's fine. Okay, we're going to end it here. Thanks for everybody that came out. Terrence, Franny, and I know there were a couple of people that popped in and out. So thank you guys for listening to and watching the live show. We're going to be back next week. We've got, let's see, Air Jordans. And I don't know if we're going to do all of these, honestly. We may break it up. We've got Air Jordans, Mr. Belvedere, Airplane, the movie, Van Halen, 1984.
So exciting.
Rathtars from Star Wars. And I will bring out my little Rathtar toy so that you can see what that looks like as we're talking about it visually.
Of course you will.
Frasier, Good Will Hunting. We'll talk about social media, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And we'll talk about the Finger of Death spell. I don't know what we're going to anchor the shows on, but it'll be one of those. And there may be a couple other ones that I missed in there, but plenty more to talk about. We got to anchor on Airplane, at least one of them.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Done deal.
we may just do a whole show on Airplane and Airplane 2. So, but yeah, there's a lot to talk about there. My goodness. All right. So, Will, any final words you got before we get out of here?
No, we have made it through Inauguration Day. So we're still a country last time I checked.
Yeah.
Congratulations, America. We did it.
Yes. Okay. We'll see you guys next week. And, well, please be safe out there in the streets of New Orleans. We're all counting on you, sir.
Indeed.
All right. We'll see you next week. The views and opinions of the Basement hosts are of our own and are not in any way affiliated with Random House or Ernest Klein. All quotes, music, sounds, trademarked, and copyrighted material referenced in the show are owned by the respectful companies and creators and are used by the Basement as fair use for entertainment purposes only. It would take me a month to read this whole disclaimer, but sad to say, I don't have that kind of time.